here doing part 11 of the Bhagavad Gita commentary, line for line, by Yogananda. Let's see if I can pump this volume up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so without further ado, we will first check out the website as usual. There goes the static again. So strange. Okay. So here we are, yogananda.org, and the Self-Realization Fellowship, where they have all the teachings, the books, where you can buy this book, and also the Self-Realization Fellowship YouTube. So we will start on chapter 7, and we'll get going. Chapter 7, the nature of spirit and the spirit of nature. Scroll down here. Alright, the nature of spirit and the spirit of nature. Quote, "Hear how thou shalt realize me," unquote. Verse 1. The blessed Lord said, "O Partha Arjuna, absorbing thy mind in me, taking shelter in me, and following the paths of yoga, hear how thou shalt realize me beyond all doubts in full completion, knowing me with all my attributes and powers." When a yogi mechanically practices yoga methods without focusing his attention with devotion on the omnipresent God, his mind becomes concentrated on the path rather than on the goal. The path of yoga is only a means to reach the divine destination when one communes with the Lord. The technique of yoga has fulfilled its purpose. I knew a devotee in India who for years so enjoyed the practice of yoga techniques that he forgot to love God. He was a spiritual robot, accomplished in the mechanics of yoga but lacking its heart and spirit, which is God communion. Okay, let's see here. Let's turn that down a little bit. Maybe that helps with the static. I'm not sure if that's YouTube's side of things. Who knows? I guess it does help a little bit. Okay, well, there you go. We'll continue. When a yogi mechanically practices, the blossom precedes the fruit. When the fruit appears, the flower falls. The flower of deep yoga practice similarly precedes the fruit of divine realization. When the fruit of final freedom arrives, only then are yoga techniques no longer necessary. Presumptuous devotees often make the spiritually dangerous mistake of imagining that they have attained God realization. They prematurely give up the practice of yoga. Many truly liberated men, however, just to set a good example to other devotees, practice yoga even after achieving complete union with God. Emancipation is a sum total composed of the yogi's wholehearted effort, the guru preceptor's guidance and blessing, and the grace of God. The Lord is the maker of the laws of salvation. It is necessary to follow the yoga technique with both devotion and divine grace in order to reach the all-knowing Father who yearns for the love of his children even more than they want his affection. Yoga should therefore be practiced by the devotee with deepest love and spiritual thirst for the Father of all. The way to acknowledge and know him, as taught in the highest yoga philosophy, is by constantly keeping the attention absorbed in his holy vibration, Om. If the yogi hears that vibration through the medium of intuition and merges his attention in it and worships it continuously, then he will see beyond doubt that there is a God who responds to his prayers, a spirit to whom he can appeal with childlike trust, no matter what his frailties and weaknesses. Such a spirit ever has been and ever will be unto eternity, and all may know him through the right method of meditation on Om. Through Om only can the manifested spirit be realized. When the yogi in meditation expands his consciousness with the cosmic Om sound emanating from the cosmic vibration, he feels himself expanding with it. He clearly perceives the ever-existent, ever-conscious, ever-blessed God who is present behind Om. It is then that the yogi realizes the immeasurable stores of energy, power, joy, wisdom, and grace that are manifested in the cosmic sound of Om, the first expression of God in the universe. He begins to glimpse the full vastness of God. Verse 2, I shall, quote, I shall relate to thee without omission both theoretical wisdom and that wisdom which can be known only by intuitive realization, knowing which, not in this world, will remain unknown to thee, unquote. And the commentary goes on. Here Krishna prefaces his forthcoming discourse with the promise to reveal the questioning Arjuna all the mysteries of the universe, everything that can be known through theoretical knowledge, together with the ultimate wisdom that can be fully perceived only by self-realization. After realizing every phase of cosmic wisdom, the devotee will be omniscient. Verse 3. Quote, among thousands of men, perhaps one strives for spiritual attainment, and among the blessed true seekers that assiduously try to reach me, perhaps one perceives me as I am, unquote. And the commentary elucidates the precious state of God realization is very difficult to attain because in the average man, the searchlights of his five senses are turned towards the perception of material objects and not inward towards God. Animals are instinct guided, unlike men. Animals have no power of free will by which they may reverse their sensory searchlights from matter to God, but even with free will, most men are habit bound. They do not try to change their material habits into spiritual habits. Through the influence of cosmic delusion, man is outwardly attracted to the spurious luster of matter and not inwardly attracted by the eternal effulgence of God. It is an undeniable truth that that man's life wave, no matter how far projected away, still exists as a part of the cosmic sea. Sooner or later, it must yield to the divine pull and go back to the cosmic ocean home from which it sprang forth. However, when the soul wave of man becomes accustomed, through bad habits, to staying away from the calm depths of the cosmic ocean, it is reluctant to return there. It is true also that God, as the cosmic ocean with its storms of delusion, wishes to enact a play with the soul waves. Hence, they are not easily allowed to return to his bosom. But when the soul waves are fiercely battered by the raging tumults of cosmic delusion, they send an inner call for help and try to respond to the underlying unceasing pull of God. Owing to the influence of the storms of delusion and to spirit's desire to play with its individualized soul waves, and to the evil desires and habits of the soul waves not to return to the depths of the sea of cosmic consciousness, few human waves make an effort to seek their original home. If all delusion buffeted souls would raise a hue and a cry, God would certainly create a lull in his cosmic storm and help the soul waves to return to him. And whenever a determined soul wave tries assiduously to attain the deeps of the divine ocean, it may do so by special divine grace. This next section is subtitled God's Grace, Man's Adamant Demand for Release, Conquer Delusion. When the vast majority of incarnate souls tire of clashing with cosmic delusion, they crave for release. This accumulated desire of great souls, good souls, and the masses of suffering souls, and also the strong urge of single souls adamantly demanding release, stirs God to cause a lull in the storm of his delusion. When this interlude comes through God's grace and man's united desire for liberation, or through the strong urge of single souls seeking salvation, then many of those souls together, for a few souls singly, dive deep into his blessed oceanic bosom, never to return to play again. They have had enough. Only those who cling to unfinished mortal desires have to reincarnate again to play with cosmic nature on the storm-buffeted surface of life. This stanza of the Bhagavad Gita points out that most men use their free will to choose to ride on ceaselessly with the storm of delusion. Out of many thousands of human beings, perhaps only one desires to re-enter the divine ocean. Even that one, desirous of returning to the cosmic bosom, but tested by cosmic delusion and obstructed by past evil karma, cannot easily merge in the freedom of the blissful sea. Nevertheless, out of these many good seekers, one or two of them here and there will succeed in overcoming the outward thrust of delusion and evil karma and be able to plunge headlong with forceful faith into the ever-pulling power of the divine deeps. God, in his oceanic cosmic consciousness, is fully aware of having caused so much trouble by having sent away his individualized soul children without their permission to be buffeted and tested by the storm of delusion. The cosmic plan, therefore, is to help all souls to return home sooner or later. The same oceanic spirit that casts forth all the soul waves from its bosom will in time dismiss delusion and bring them all back to their home of freedom. What a paradox that in spite of so much suffering and misery, only one among thousands of men is shrewd enough to seek God, and that among such true seekers, perhaps only one will cultivate the unceasing spiritual tenacity to neutralize the effect of bad karma and of cosmic delusion, and thus attain the reality, God. This next section is, or subsection, is titled Liberating Power of Kriya Yoga and Undiscourageable Perseverance. Many sincere devotees of the Lord do not force themselves to seek Him with ever-increasing intensity in meditation, nor are they persistent in their search for Him. That is why they have only meager or fleeting inspirations and do not realize Him continuously. But a persevering devotee, in spite of much bad karma and the temptations of cosmic delusion, will certainly reach God in the end. Elsewhere, the Bhagavad Gita says, quote, even a devotee who realizes only shortly before death that God is real and all else unreal will be able to communicate with Him in after-death state, unquote. That's fascinating. That's like the very first, one of the very first things said in the Course of Miracles, essentially. Kind of the whole book hinges on that idea. Continuing, some great saints tell us that God has relaxed certain spiritual regulations for the benefit of devotees who must live in this modern age of confusion. A present-day devotee, they say, who will continuously pray for God communion for 3 days and nights or even for 24 hours will realize his goal. Yogavatar Lahiri Mayasaya, emphasizing the potential power of Kriya Yoga, said that a person with much liberating karma from past life spiritual endeavors who gives 3 years to deep practice of Kriya Yoga according to the Guru's instructions may achieve not only God communion but may become forever united to Him. Failing in that, a devotee with considerable past liberating karma by deep practice of Kriya Yoga under a Guru may in 6 years attain complete liberation. Others with some liberating karma can find liberation in 12 years. By the deep practice of Kriya Yoga and by the Guru's guidance and blessings, and all the deep seekers, and by the Guru's guidance and blessings, and all deep seekers, even those with very little past liberating karma, may find liberation in a period of 24 years. Pardon me while I take a quick drink. Okay, others with no previous karma, liberating karma, but possessing now supreme determination and the guidance of a true Kriya Yoga guru, by deep and steady practice of Kriya Yoga, may be able to find realization in 48 years. If a devotee is unable to find realization in 48 years, he will certainly be attracted in his next life to Kriya Yoga and will practice it deeply until final salvation is achieved. The successful Kriya Yogi is that rare blessed one among thousands of seekers who, as the Lord says in the Gita verse, strives undauntedly until he, quote, perceives me as I am, unquote. Let's see here. Just checking the sound. It's down a little scratchy still. There we go. Okay. All right, continuing. This next section is subtitled, Anyone who makes a tenacious effort will find God. My beloved student, Saint Lin, once observed, quote, out of each 1,000 greedy men, one adamantly seeks money, and out of those determined seekers, one becomes rich, unquote. He also told me, quote, when a dollar bill drops within its sight, 12 wolves of businessmen jump to get it. The one who most quickly grabs it and with tenacity hangs onto it while being pounded by other greedy businessmen may, half alive, get away with that dollar, unquote. Just as no one may amass wealth without resourcefulness and determination, so the infinite wealth is not to be attained without courage and tenacity. Indeed. Man, however, as the divine image, should understand that God has not to be earned but realized. A determined devotee by steady efforts recovers this eternal divine forgotten heritage, ever existing within the soul. God realization is not reserved for the specially privileged and for one son of God only, nor for a few sons of God. God is ready to take back all prodigal sons, anyone who makes the supreme effort to return to Him. Only the wanderer who has traveled far away from his cosmic heritage through a tortuous, evil way will find it difficult and delay in returning home. I often say that if 100 persons in various circumstances of life prayed deeply and made supreme efforts to become millionaires, all of them could not in one lifetime succeed. Most of them would have to wait several lives to get into the proper environment that would make them eligible, by the acquirement of proper human karma, to become millionaires. But I also point out that all men, being already made in the image of God, can attain Him in one lifetime by making the proper spiritual effort under the guidance of a true guru. God is not to be earned like money, but His grace by His grace, He is already earned and deposited in every soul, but owing to human forgetfulness, He has to be rediscovered. The poet rightly sang, quote, "'Tis heaven alone that is given away, 'tis only God may be had for the asking." This next section is titled Prakriti, the dual nature of spirit in creation. Verse 4. Quote, my manifested nature, Prakriti, has an eightfold differentiation: earth, water, fire, air, ether, sensory mind, manas, intelligence, and egoism. And intelligence is buddhi, egoism is ahamkara. Unquote. So again, my manifested nature has an eightfold differentiation: earth, water, fire, air, ether, sensory mind, intelligence, and egoism. Unquote. And this section is subtitled The Eight Elements of Cosmic Material Nature. Shadows of films and the beam of light in a cinema booth combine to manifest motion pictures of subjective beings acting with their egos, sense minds, and the discriminative intelligences on an objective earthly stage. God similarly uses the delusive films of relativity offered by cosmic nature to produce His dream motion pictures of intelligently active sentient human individualities playing on a stage of matter, manifestations of elements of earth, water, fire, air, and the invisible, all-pervasive ether, vibrating dynamic beings in beautiful continents surrounded by oceans, illuminated by the sun, moon, and abounded in vital air. This stanza of the Bhagavad Gita gives a summary of the eight elements or forces of cosmic material nature. The ancient scientists spoke loosely of nature as matter. The modern scientists think of matter as coordinated forces. They describe all mineral, plant, and animal substances as made of 92 elements, which are further explained as nothing more than permutations and combinations of different atoms or wave energies. Matter, according to Hindu philosophy, is made of the intelligent thoughttrons of God, which materialize into grosser forces of intelligent lifetrons, prana, electrons, protons, atoms, molecules, cells, tissues, and organic matter. Both inorganic and organic matter are composed of atoms, which is called anu, and subatomic particles and energies, which is called paramanu, and lifetrons, which is prana, and consciousness or thoughttrons, which is chaitanya of God. This is the constitution of physical cosmic nature or matter from the metaphysical standpoint. The yogis maintain that matter, physical cosmic nature, or jada Prakriti, gross nature, or apara Prakriti, the gross expression of God, may be spoken of as the physical dream body of the Lord. This cosmic physical dream body is made of 5 objective elements: subtle vibratory forces of earth, water, fire, air, life, which is life force, and ether, 2 perceptive cognitive processes, sensory mind and intelligence, and 1 perceiving entity, the ahamkara, or egoistic consciousness of cosmic nature. The little body dream of man, the copy of cosmic physical nature, is included in the latter's larger dream. Even as cosmic nature is the physical dream body of God and is made of 8 elementary forces, so the human body is also made of 8 elementary forces and is the dream body of the human soul, the perfect image of God. As a dreamer in sleep becomes the cognitive entity or ego and uses his sensory dream mind and dream intelligence to perceive his dream objectified body, made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, so God in his cosmic dream becomes the cognitive physical dream entity and cognitive dream processes, the dream mind and the dream intelligence, in order to perceive his objective physical body of nature, made of 8 cosmic dream physical elements. This next section is subtitled 2 Aspects of Holy Ghost, Cosmic Nature, Para Prakriti, and Apara Prakriti. As man's homogeneous consciousness during the perception of a dream divides itself by the law of relativity to become the subjective dreamer, the process of dreaming, and the objective dream, so God, through his cosmic delusory force, Maya, creates the statistical dream entity of cosmic physical nature with its manifold perceptions of mind and intelligence and its cosmic dream body of 5 gross dream elements. In the impure state, this cosmic physical nature, the physical dream body of God, is called apara prakriti. Hidden behind apara prakriti is the para prakriti, pure nature of God, constituting the finer cosmic astral universe and cosmic causal universe, guided by the superior intelligent entity of cosmic nature, Om, or the Holy Ghost. In the human body, the pure soul is the neutral witness of all its operations. The physical ego, the pseudo-reflection of the soul, acts in conjunction with cosmic nature, Prakriti, to operate the workings of the physical body. The finer discriminative astral ego and causal ego, in attunement with the soul and advanced devotees, act, respectively, as the representatives of the finer cosmic astral and cosmic causal nature to operate the workings of man's astral and causal bodies. Similarly, God's Kudashta intelligence, the Krishna or Christ consciousness, is the neutral witness of cosmic creation. The Kudashta intelligence remains itself through the Holy Ghost or Om intelligence as apara prakriti, the cosmic dream physical entity, directing the cosmic dream physical universe. The same Kudashta intelligence through the Holy Ghost or Om has as para prakriti in the finer state directs the subtler cosmic astral and cosmic causal universes. The two aspects of the Holy Ghost vibrations are thus the apara prakriti, impure nature, and the para prakriti, pure nature. And you'll notice in Sanskrit, if there's an a before a word, and usually there's two versions of that, and the a usually means without something or impure, or it's like the negative connotation, where without it is the positive connotation. It's just something I've picked up reading so much of this stuff. This subsection is called Dream Nature of the Universe and Human Body. A dream has a threefold aspect: the dreamer, his perception, and the dream objects, made of the 5 dream elements of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The complex cosmic triple dream universes are run by the intelligent cosmic mother nature or intelligent cosmic Holy Ghost in a finer and in a grosser way. The physical universe is guided by the external vibrations of the Holy Ghost, the impure apara prakriti. The astral and causal universes are guided by pure Holy Ghost or pure nature or para prakriti. The whole physical universe is a true to sight, true to hearing, true to smell, true to taste, and true to touch, quote-unquote, technicolored cosmic dream motion picture, created and sustained by the physical, mental, and intelligent beam of the cosmic dream entity, nature, or intelligent Holy Ghost. The latter is a reflection of the Kudastha, Christ intelligence in creation, which in turn is the reflection of God the Father beyond creation. As a man's one basic consciousness may create in dreamland another dream entity and bestow on it egoism, mind, and intelligence to carry on, for example, the building of a mansion, so the spirit dreams itself to be the triune entity, God the Father beyond creation, God the Christ or Kudastha intelligence of creation, and the intelligent cosmic nature or Holy Ghost with its 8 potential differentiations through which it creates and sustains the 3 objective mansions, quote unquote, of creation: causal, astral, and physical. After understanding the dream nature of the universe, the devotee should learn the dream nature of the human body, made of the 5 dream elements. The body exists in a sphere of dream ether. It inbreathes vital dream air. Its chemical processes are carried on by the heat of fiery energies. It is composed of dream, quote-unquote, water or blood, which constitutes the greater part of the dream body, and of dream, quote-unquote, earth or so-called solid flesh. This dream body is perceived by the dream sense mind and dream discriminative intelligence, and is guided by the dream entity of the little nature ego. As the spirit dreamed itself into God beyond creation, God in creation, and God as the cosmic nature with the cosmic body, so God as the transcendental soul and discriminating intelligence and physical ego sustains the physical dream body. The 5 dream elements commingled together constitute the physical dream body. The sense-identified physical ego and the mind, the coordinator of the 10 senses, are centered outside of the spiritual eye. The intelligence works through the inside of the spiritual eye. The seat of man's soul consciousness extends from this point between the eyebrows to the central top of the head, in the subtle spiritual centers of the Kudastha and thousand-petaled lotus. The advanced yogi, half awake in this cosmic dream, beholds this cosmic technicolor dream motion picture of 5 dream elements, the human body, and observes its operation as directed by the triune divine entities. He is able to see the little body as it is operated by the soul, by the discriminative ego or intelligence, and by the physical ego. Verse 5, quote, "Thus my lower nature, apara prakriti. But understand, O mighty armed Arjuna, that my different and higher nature, para prakriti, is the jiva, the self-consciousness and life principle that sustains the cosmos." Unquote. The jiva is the consciousness of the soul identified with its manifested or incarnate state, the self-consciousness or individualized existence of the soul. On the macrocosmic scale, Kudastha Chaitanya, the Krishna or Christ consciousness, is the intelligence of God immanent in all creation as the unchanged and unchanging pure reflection of God, the quote-unquote soul of the universe. And para prakriti is that same consciousness but containing within it and expressing itself through the creative elements of individuality and diversity, the quote-unquote jiva of the cosmos. On the microcosmic scale, the soul in man is the ever unchanging and unchanged and unchanging image of God. The jiva is that same divine consciousness which recognizes its essential oneness with God but operates as an individualized entity, the discriminative ego that is identified with the soul. This subsection is titled The Creative Intelligence and Life Principles in Man and Cosmos. The quote-unquote jiva as para prakriti, attuned to Kudastha Krishna Christ intelligence in the universe, and as the discriminative ego attuned to the soul in man, is the creative intelligence and life principle in all individualized forms, the active divine intelligence of God and the Creator and of his individualized image, the soul. Without this superior nature behind the gross manifestations, the physical universe and body of man would not exist. The cosmic dream, physical nature of 8 aspects or forces, was explained in the last stanza as being operated by the gross nature of the cosmic physical Holy Ghost, apara prakriti. In this 5th stanza, Krishna is revealing to Arjuna how the finer, superior, and astral causal universes and bodies of man are vivified and sustained, respectively, by the God-identified nature of the cosmic intelligent Holy Ghost, para prakriti, and by the soul-identified intelligent discriminative ego. As the physical ego is responsible for the sustenance of the physical body, so the physical impure cosmic nature, apara prakriti, is responsible for the creation and sustenance of the cosmic dream physical universe. As the discriminative ego identified with the soul is the sustainer of the astral and causal bodies of man, so the Holy Ghost, para prakriti, purely identified with Kudastha intelligence and with God, is the sustainer of the finer astral and causal universes. As the physical ego makes the body appear as a mass of flesh weighing so many pounds, so the cosmic physical Holy Ghost, apara prakriti, makes the cosmic universe look like a mass of gross matter. When the discriminative ego becomes one with the soul, it perceives through its intuitional vision that the body is made of intelligent and finer dream lifetrons and an electroprotonic atomic aura. Similarly, the yogi identified with the finer intelligent cosmic Holy Ghost, para prakriti, beholds the cosmic not as matter but as a structure of intelligence and cosmic life energy with an electroprotonic atomic cosmic radiation. This finer Holy Ghost cosmic nature endows the external universe with an appearance not of gross matter but of cosmic vitality, prana, and the cosmic light of intelligence. Verse 6, quote, "Understand that these dual natures of mine, the pure and the impure prakriti, are the womb of all beings. I am the progenitor and also the dissolver of the entire cosmos." Unquote. And the commentary elucidates, God, by his inner spiritual cosmic nature, creates causal and astral universes and their beings. By his outer physical cosmic nature, he creates the physical cosmos and its material beings. Thus the one consciousness of God, through the finer and grosser nature of his prakriti, is the creator of the dream physical universe with all its objects and varieties of human beings and animals contained within it. Out of the intelligent womb of cosmic nature and her dual manifesting. Okay. Out of the intelligent womb of cosmic nature and her dual manifestation emerge all kinds of good and evil beings, all life of minerals, plants, animals, human beings, and angels. Minerals, plants, and animals are helpless products of Prakriti, but man, endowed with intelligence, begins to give resistance to the delusive influence of cosmic nature. He tries, by goodness and spirituality, to become a Superman and to escape from the Maya net of cosmic dreams back into the blessed region of Supreme Spirit. It is God's one consciousness that is responsible for the creation of the two-natured, intelligent cosmic being, Mother Nature, Maya, Shakti, or Prakriti, and of the objective dream universe. Therefore, when God withdraws the cosmic delusion of relativity and dissolves cosmic nature within himself, all its dreamings and creations of objective dream universes then retire as invisible thoughts of the great dreamer, God. The Lord dreams cosmic nature. He instills into it the individuality and power to dream the universe. Thus, it is solely God who is the originator of cosmic nature and cosmic dream universe, and by dissolving cosmic nature in himself, he can thus dissolve the cosmic dream universe. This next major section is called How the Creator Sustains the Manifested Creation. Verse 7, quote, O Arjuna, there is nothing higher than me or beyond me. All things, creatures and objects, are bound to me like a row of gems on a thread, unquote. All of nature's manifestations can be ascribed to the soul origin, spirit. To the soul origin, spirit, period. But no cause of spirit can be traced. It is self-evolved and causeless. The infinite contains all finite objects and also exists beyond them. There is not beyond infinity. God's consciousness threads through creation's shining garland of dream appearances. Spirit, the supreme unity, is the sole cause of the triune dream creation. It is the one cosmic string of Spirit's consciousness that holds together God beyond creation, God in creation, and God the intelligent cosmic nature with its dream jewels of human beings, animals, vegetation, blossoms, sparkling minerals that compose the garland of creation. The cosmic dreamer's consciousness keeps all dream images and objects strung together as a lei of decorative dreams. God playfully wears his dream wreath of creation to entertain himself and his children. When the string of the divine dreamer's consciousness is withdrawn, the garland of dream persons and objects falls apart and vanishes into the being of spirit. As infinite space contains all finite manifestations of planets, stars, and universes, so the infinite sky of spirit contains with it all the finite manifestations of creation. It is natural but erroneous to think that because all finite things are contained in the infinite, therefore the infinite must be contained in something else. All finite things are caused by the infinite, but the infinite being the supreme cause, the thing in itself, is not the effect of any cause. The infinite being, the container of all fine objects, is not contained by anything else except beyond it. The measureless spirit cannot be measured by a finite category. Finite things are caused, but the infinite evolves itself, exists by itself, and causes itself by itself. Otherwise, it would not be infinite, but finite. An Arabian dependent on dates as a mainstay of his diet asked a Bengali visiting him in Arabia, quote, "Do edible dates grow in Bengal?" No, replied the Bengali. How then do the Hindus live? Inquired the Arabian. Finite beings living by finite causes think that the infinite cannot exist without a cause. Because a person asks, who made me and my brother man, he also wonders, well, who made God? And here's a section called an experiment, so this should be interesting. Okay, so here's the experiment. Close your eyes and picture the sun as a small saucer in the sky. Then by visualization, make the sun as big as the whole sky. Then make that expanded mental image of the sun as being as eternity, far, far beyond the most distant planets. Still, you will see space and eternity ever extending beyond that mentally enlarging spherical finite image of the sun. It will become evident that you, to you that the biggest infinite sphere that can be imagined is not as big as the eternity that has no end. All finite things have limits, but eternity, the home of God, has no boundary. This subsection is called the nature of infinity. Krishna is saying in this stanza that there is nothing beyond God. All finite things live in eternity, but eternity lives in nothing else. All finite beings live in God, but the infinite God lives in nothing else beyond him. All dreams exist in the consciousness of the dreamer, but his consciousness exists beyond all his dreams. Consciousness can exist by itself without dreams. All finite dreams of creation exist in the formless consciousness of the ever-existent, ever-conscious, ever-new God of bliss. But his cosmic consciousness can exist by itself without the dream forms of creation. All finite objects produce the illusion of something beyond them. Therefore, mortals ask, quote, what is beyond the infinite, unquote? And the answer is, nothing. Naught could be bigger than the infinite that is the container of all else. Quote, look unto me, and be ye saved, all the ends of the earth, for I am God, and there is none else, unquote. I'm assuming that one's from the Bible. The thread is hidden behind the beads of a necklace, and as the dreamer's consciousness is secreted behind the garlands of dream images, so the divine coordinator remains unseen behind the dream lay of creation. As the thread is the support of a row of beads, and as the dreamer's mind upholds his dream images, so it is God's consciousness alone that sustains all the dream appearances of creation. Verse number 8, quote, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, I am the fluidity in the waters. I am the radiation in the moon and the sun. I am the Om, Pranava, in all the Vedas, the sound in the ether, and the manliness in men, unquote. Flowing waters, the shining moon and sun, the truths of the scriptures as expounded by wise men, the roaring sounds in the ether, and the deeds of valiant men, all can be represented by the shadows, lights, and sounds of a motion picture. God similarly creates on the screen of human consciousness all the quote-unquote real motion pictures of the world. This next section is called Attaining the Vision of the Vastness of the Lord's Creation. The 8th to the 12th stanzas of this chapter describe how the cosmic dreamer God sustains all the manifestations of his cosmic dream. Man lives in a very small dream world. He cannot conceive of the vast dream of God. Man's little consciousness cannot picture the measureless power of the Lord's cosmic consciousness. In the daytime, a man looks at the sun and sees only a portion of the sky. All objects on earth are invisible to him except those few that lie within the small range of his vision. By the aid of a telescope, man can view the stars, the bands around Saturn, the many moons of Jupiter, and other objects invisible to the naked eye. With the aid of a microscope, man can also see millions of crawling microscopic germs in a drop of water. In the dreamland, man can transform his mind into a microscope to see germs, or can create a giant mental telescope to see into the farthest astral or physical worlds. The ordinary man during the day sees a shining portion of the earth. At night, in the light of the moon, he sees another, very different dream picture of this earth. At night, he can create a small dream of his own in the world of his subconscious mind. During during conscious calmness with closed eyes and during deep sleep, man feels only his existence, without perception of restless thoughts or sensation or sense objects. Man in that state of stillness is confined in a little space. During his perception of the waking dream world or of the dream world in slumber, he remains confined in dreams. The ordinary man, therefore, has no adequate vision of the vastness of the physical universe, nor of the astral and causal cosmoses. The yogi, with closed eyes, dismisses his thoughts and sensations through the proper technique of meditation. When he is able to do that, he finds within himself the knowing, knower, and known, all converted into the one perception of ecstasy. And this is the entire basis behind what people would have called Gnosticism. Not all of it, because there's different kinds of it, but that other type of Christianity had this was the main gnosis. This is what they meant by gnosis. Continuing, experiencing soul bliss, the devotee feels his consciousness circling into space. Then he feels the cosmic vibration manifesting as the audible cosmic sound and visible cosmic light. It is at this time that the yogi's intuitive spherical awareness begins to spread with the ever-expanding cosmic sound, cosmic light, and cosmic consciousness. Then the yogi learns to expand his being into spirit and its cosmic consciousness, and to project his sphere of audition into the realm of cosmic sound, and to enlarge his visible inner life force into the cosmic life force. It is then that he finds his soul no longer confined to the little dream or sleep or the dream of the world. Instead of the yogi's soul not only feels the cosmic consciousness in all creation, but beyond it, to the farthest reaches of the vibrationless sphere. The yogi, at one with both the infinite and its finite creation, perceives the cosmic dream and his own body as projections of his infinite consciousness. The yogi, being one with God, beholds his consciousness appearing as the sapidity in the waters, the luminescence of the moon and the sun, and the cosmic sound and light roaming in the universes and ethereal ether, the perceptions of all sentient beings and saintly souls, and the Om, or truth vibrations of the Vedic scriptures and of all other books of deep wisdom. The yogi perceives the cosmic energy emanating from God's consciousness to be sustaining the vitality of all dream human bodies. As the motion picture beam supports all the images and objects in a motion picture, and as the dreamer's consciousness upholds his dream images and objects, so the consciousness of God converts itself into the cosmic beam that maintains all the images and objects of the universal dreamland. The meditating yogi also understands the words of Krishna in this stanza as follows, quote, fluidity of waters, unquote, the creative vibratory motion of the five elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, in the spinal centers, quote, sun and moon, unquote, the positive and negative forces in creation in man's body, duality, whose property of cosmic light is the building block of all objects and beings in God's dream cosmos. And quote, Om in the Vedas, unquote, the variations of the Om vibration manifesting in the spinal centers. See commentary in chapter 2, verse 45. Let's see here. Quote, the sound in the ether, unquote, the cosmic Om with its creative power eminent in the ubiquitous ether. Quote, manliness in men, unquote, the soul and its attributes. See commentary on chapter 2, verse 3. Verse 9, quote, I am the wholesome fragrance exuding from the earth, the luminescence in the fire am I, the life in all creatures, and the self-discipline in anchorites, unquote. The commentary continues, the yogi perceives the body and its vibrating elements as a miniature dream of God's consciousness, even as he perceives all matter, all lights, the subtle cosmic energy in beings, and the high consciousness of ascetics to be dream manifestations of the divine mind. Krishna reveals to Arjuna that it is God's consciousness which vibrates as the sacred fragrance in the dream vibration of the earth. God's consciousness also appears as the dream luminescence of the fire element. It is his consciousness that vibrates as cosmic energy in the astral bodies of all beings, and it is his consciousness that manifests as the cosmic perceptions of purified ascetics. Now, to anyone who's listening to this that may not have looked through the many videos and audiobooks that I've done, there was one book I did read called The Philosophy of Fire by Rosicrucian, turn of the last century, 1900, late 1800s, something like that. Anyhow, the whole book is about fire and its symbolism throughout religion and history and stuff like that, and it's exactly what he's saying here. So just throwing that out there if you're interested and something else to listen to along some of the lines. That's another thing that you guys can find called The Philosophy of Fire. You can find it on the channel. Anyways, continuing. In this stanza, as in the previous one, is reference not only to the omnipresence of God in nature, but also to his immanent manifestation in the cerebral spinal centers. The yogi feels God's consciousness vibrating in the coccygeal center with its sacred fragrance of the earth element. He feels in the lumbar center the presence of God's vibratory fire element. He feels God's cosmic vitality that vibrates in the dorsal center of all beings. He feels his cosmic consciousness in the cerebral center as experienced by self-disciplinarians. A spiritual magnetic polarity exists between the coccygeal, earth center, and the dorsal, life force center that aids in the upliftment of the yogi's life force and consciousness through the spine. The meditating yogi, through a fire of self-control, quote-unquote self-discipline, manifested in the lumbar center, lifts his life force and consciousness from the three lower centers associated with the senses, and through the same fire or self-control ascends to the dorsal life force center, and thence upward to the higher cerebral centers of superconsciousness, Kudasta, Christ consciousness, and the cosmic consciousness. Verse 10, quote, "Know me to be the eternal seed of all creatures, O son of Pritha, Arjuna. I am the understanding of the keen, the radiance of the vital beings." Unquote. As countless seeds can produce innumerable trees, and as the one dream consciousness of man can produce many dream objects and images, so the consciousness of God is the eternal seed, cause for the continuous creation of the images of dream beings and dream worlds. As a sleeping man, through his dream consciousness bestows intelligence and radiant vitality on his dream images, so the cosmic dreamer instills intelligence in men and radiance in angelic souls. Verse 11, quote, "Among the powerful, O best of the Bharatas, Arjuna, I am the power that is free from longings and attachment. I am that desire in men which is keeping with dharma, righteousness." Unquote. The commentary continues, it is God's consciousness that instills the desire for liberation in wise men, and the desire for good results in righteous worldly people. It is the Lord who moves the springs of action in human beings and urges them to perform proper actions according to the scriptural injunctions of the sages. God's power sustains the desireless renunciant, and it is his same power that creates good desires in worldly men who long for the fruits of good actions. Desire for the result of good actions neutralizes the desire for the fruits of evil actions. But superior to action inspired by good desires is non-attached, desireless, self-controlled action. The former brings only temporary merit. The latter brings liberation. Absolutely, I agree with that. Verse 12, quote, "Know thou that all manifestations of good activity and evil emanate from me. Though they are in me, I am not in them." And I'll read that again with the parentheses. Know thou that all manifestation of sattva, good, and rajas, activity, and tamas, evil, emanate from me. Though they are in me, I am not in them. Unquote. And the commentary elucidates, all good and evil dream pictures are projected by the cosmic motion picture dream. Yet these illusory dream pictures made manifest by God's light do not reveal his essentiality. They cannot exist without the underlying beam of cosmic consciousness, but spirit remains ever changeless beyond the flux of phenomena. A man may dream good, worldly, and evil dreams, yet discover on waking that his consciousness is unaffected by them. Similarly, a yogi, on waking in cosmic consciousness, finds that God's dream of creation, through the action of the Lord's own power of cosmic delusion, Maya, produces myriads of good, worldly, and evil men without any involvement of himself in the triple attributes of nature. This next subsection is titled, "Why Are Evil and Suffering a part of God's Creation?" Though the cosmic dream does not condition the transcendental consciousness of the Lord, the divine dreamer, yet what of man? The cosmic display of the triple qualities undeniable affects him on whom is this dream imposed. Right. Why does the Lord thus test man? The answer is God knows how to remain unaffected while participating in this cosmic dream that is tainted with the binding attributes. And because he made man in his image, he expects him to use his discrimination and to play his part in this cosmic dream of good and evil without being inwardly affected by it. When God created the Mayic dream of entangling attributes, he hoped that man would use his divine free choice to resist the insidious evil influences. Through the storm of cosmic delusion, the Lord created soul waves in order that he might play with them. Indeed, the little good soul waves soon returned to the safety of the Spirit's vast bosom. Even the world-entangled soul waves and the evil unshackled soul waves, keeping far away from spirit by buffeting one another in the storm of delusion, pounded by misery and eventually abandon their evil inclinations and respond to the cosmic pull of the divine ocean that is ever summoning them to return to its deeps. Therefore, God may not be blamed wholly for the suffering that comes to those who obdurately desire to remain a part of the ever-tempting cosmic delusion. Knowing that he is responsible for having sent man out into the hazards of nature, the Lord ever keeps his spirit attached to human souls, constantly pulling them towards him, lest unrestrained they persist in hurting themselves by playing too long and too violently. The question, quote, what about the helpless animals that have been cast into the delusions of nature, unquote, is answered by the fact that animals, having no free choice, cannot long keep themselves enmeshed. Whether good or evil or active, like the sweet-voiced canary, the venomous snake, and useful horse, the subhuman orders are not karmically entangled by the triple modes of nature that definitely affect man. Instinct bound, the canary chirps and trills. The snake, through fear, may injure a man who accidentally steps on it or who tries to deliberately hurt it. After causing a man's death, the snake is not punished by evil karma, for was unaware of the consequence of its action. It did not know that poison was introduced into its fangs by nature, but a human murderer who, influenced by wrath, stabs his enemy to death, incurs evil karma because of his improper use of the gift of divine free choice. A workhorse performing its duties pleasurably or grudgingly is not subject to the law of karma because it has no free choice and is instinct bound. But a businessman toiling to make money willingly or unwillingly is harnessed to the karmic effects of his action because he has free choice either to work for God and the welfare of others and become emancipated, or to work for the satisfaction of his ego and selfishness and thus to remain in bondage in the thousand exorable laws of nature. A snake is impervious to its own poison, but the venom is harmful to a person who is bitten. Therefore, one's only sensible course is not to go near snakes, or to exterminate them, or to find an antidote for snake bites. Similarly, the poison of Maya or dream delusion does not affect God does not affect God, though it is in him manifested form. Prakriti. It does, however, affect all the unlightened creatures that throng the world of his creation. To remedy the situation, the intelligent man should remain in good company, or at least should remove himself from evil company. Poisoned from birth by Maya, he should strive to meet good persons, follow virtuous ways and the guidance of a true guru, and most importantly, practice yoga. Through the cumulative effects of meditation, he should remain ever calm and spiritually watchful. Those are practical methods to neutralize the effects of delusion. If God had not created the triple qualities that pleasurably and excitingly and painfully affect man, his cosmic dream play would be meaningless. By these triune influences, he tests his children, and by such tests guides them in the right use of their free choice, that, after manfully and successfully playing in the dream drama, they might find their way back to him. He created this cosmic dream play to entertain himself and his children. He never meant for it to hurt his offspring. They injure themselves not by not properly playing their parts. If they enact their roles intelligently, they will find happiness in this life and eternal bliss in the great hereafter. The ultimate message of this stanza of the Bhagavad Gita is that man, made in the image of God, must learn to be transcendent like his maker. The triple qualities of cosmic delusion and the cosmic dream, tinged with those entangled attributes, all proceed from God, but as he remains unaffected by them, so man may learn, through a constant yoga communication with God, how to remain uninvolved in Maya and how to view the panoramas of life's experience as sheer entertainment. This next big section is called Cosmic Hypnosis, Maya, and the Way to Transcend It. Verse 13. Let me take a quick drink here. Okay, quote, "This world of mortal beings does not perceive me, unchangeable and beyond all qualities, because they are deluded by the triple modes of nature." Let me read that one more time. "This world of mortal beings does not perceive me, unchangeable and beyond all qualities, because they are deluded by the triple modes of nature," unquote. The commentary continues, "Emotional moviegoers are too intent on beholding the motion pictures to notice Notice overhead the picture causing the beam. The picture causing beam, I'm sorry. Similarly, worldly men are too deeply engrossed in God's dream pictures of life to perceive his taintless, omnipresent beam that is the sole creator, the only doer. And by the way, at the end of this, I'm going to give you guys a link to something interesting on some quantum physics stuff. As the dreamer, which goes along with everything that this whole chapter is about. So, continuing. Yes, as a dream engaged in viewing his dream of good and evil, as a dreamer engaged in viewing his dream of good and evil experiences cannot capture the consciousness of his wakeful state, free from the excitation of the dreams, so the people of the world are so much engrossed in viewing and participating in the triply affected cosmic dream that they fail to observe with unattachment as a divine spectacle. And here's a quote from something. Quote, but leave the wise to wrangle, and with me the quarrel of the universe let be. And in some corner of the hubbub couched, make game of that which makes as much of thee. Unquote. The cosmic dream delusion is imposed like a hypnotic spell on men from their birth. They remain unaware of its insidiousness. If God made his supreme blessedness evident to all men, as he does to the tested and victorious Superman, they would not be influenced by the lesser lures of the senses. God, the perfect, ever-new, unending bliss, is the greatest temptation to the soul of man. Therefore, he tests his children first with inferior temptations of the senses. And when man has rejected those in a proper spirit of wisdom, the superior divine treasures are revealed to him. This next section is subtitled The Secret of Cosmic Game of Hide and Seek. The secret of the cosmic game that is God's. Okay, the secret of the cosmic game is that God hides his surprise, his bliss, behind the temptations of the world. There we go. He knows that man, made in his image, with supreme joy hidden within him, will not forever wallow in the mud of the senses. Disillusioned by unsatisfying sense pleasures, man is haunted by the memory of his lost soul peace. Harmed by the poisoned honey of pleasures, he ultimately seeks the pure divine nectar. God's game of hide and seek with his sons in this cosmic dream would be pointless if he had not made it hazardous with pain and pleasure. He blindfolded men with ignorance and hid his perfect face. The surprise goal to be achieved by his children one by one is consciousness of identity with him. And I'll just stop for just a second and say something about this whole disillusioned by the unsatisfying sense pleasures, that kind of thing. I mean, this whole thing comes down like the law of diminishing returns in life, right? So no matter what you do, it's something you like, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be food, it could be your favorite roller coaster, it could be just pick something, that you choose to be your quote unquote favorite something, and you engage in that favorite something, and you maybe obsessively engage in that favorite something until basically that favorite something becomes completely it does not hold the same satisfying feeling of whatever it is that you're engaging in. And so if one pays attention to your life, especially the older you get, you'll realize that like you've dropped, all kinds of things from your life that you used to love, and now are just like meh, and a lot of that, that comes down to things like sex and things like that too. It's everything that you experience on a certain level, like, and that's the thing about it, is that people obsess over these things, and after a while it just, I don't know, it's just one of those things where you can still enjoy it, but the further one gets to in one's spiritual path, it's funny is because this whole idea of non-attachment is so interesting, and it makes perfect sense on an applicable level, is that when you're really unattached for something, you kind of just enjoy it for what it is, and there's no extra whatever. So in a lot of ways, you are more present in whatever it is that you're doing. And I can tell you that from absolute experience that is totally true. So it's just it's one of those things where if you can, if a person out there who's starting their sort of path, or maybe in the middle of it or whatever, and any of y'all listening here, listening for a reason, obviously, it's not too hard to imagine yourself being able to drop certain things that it might be hard for you to think about dropping. And one of the things I say sometimes to my wife when we get into certain kinds of conversations is, usually it's in the point of maybe in an argument. But one of the things I say is that she'll stress out about all these things, and she'll bring up all these different varying points. I'm sorry, all these different varying points about all the things that she is perceiving and worrying about, and possibly looking into, and just creating this whole environment inside of her head that creates this stressful thing and causes her to say and do things which are unfortunate. But one of the things that I always explain to her is that, and I tell her, I'm like, well, you realize that, like, once all this stuff is done and then it's out of the way and it's no longer a problem, then, like, all the stress and everything that you created for yourself and for me in the situation was literally pointless. Like, it doesn't mean anything at all, and it doesn't cause you stress any longer. And it's just one of those things where sometimes there are good elements and good times to be able to illustrate things to people, like, right there in life, because it's true. It's like people put all this undue pressure, but realistically the pressure is so pointless and illusory, and it does nothing but keep you from doing whatever it is that you're trying to do. And once it's done, it's just like, it's just one of the most pointless things in the world. And it's like, why in the world did something of like these jumble of thoughts create a whole negative situation? And trust me when I say that, when I'm saying this out there to you guys, I know that all of you, every single one of you, have experienced this in one way or the other countless times. And it's just one of those things where, like, if we can stop while it's happening and step back or take a breath and be like, oh, I see what's going on here. And this is what, like, gaining intuition and wisdom in the practical sense can really mean for somebody, is that once you realize these things, once you realize what's actually happening in the background of any kind of situation, suddenly you can really understand where people are coming from, where people are going, and how to engage the situation in the most constructive way, let's just say. So, there's a lot to all this. And anyways, I'm going to continue because I normally just read. So, continuing. Supermen have not received the realization of God as an unearned gift. Those who attained divine communion in infancy and had entered that state in a previous life by a deep practice of yoga and meditation. No one should helplessly envy the God realization of saints, nor be discouraged by his own self-created ill luck and ignorance of God. Absolutely. Like the Superman, he too has been in the heart of God throughout eternity. Even when he started on his round of human incarnations, he came as one made in his image. Thus, remembering his divine heritage, he should not wait for good karma to arrive by sheer luck. He should put forth right effort and fan the desire to recover his forgotten bliss by accumulating good karma through meditation. Man already possesses God within himself, and as soon as he takes the proper steps, may regain consciousness of him. Verse 14, quote, "It is difficult indeed to go beyond the influence of my divine cosmic hypnosis. Imbued with the triple qualities, only those who take shelter in me, the cosmic hypnotizer, becomes free from this power of illusion," unquote. And the commentary continues, "It is hard to banish cosmic hypnosis and its entrancing phenomena, even after its influence has been detected, without constant prayer to its maker, God. A hypnotized person is unable to escape from the potent smell until he has obtained the help of the mesmerist. When a subject learns through the comments of others that he is acting like an automaton, he should himself try to overcome the irrational influence. If he finds himself powerless, he must implore the aid of the hypnotist in dissolving the spell." This section is subtitled "Freeing Oneself from the Spell of Cosmic Hypnosis, Maya." Ordinary people are unable to escape from the triple delusive realm of Maya, and their only hope for freedom is in beseeching the aid of the cosmic magician, God. Experiments of psychologists prove that hypnotized persons may be made to experience any bodily sensation, even though no sensory stimulus is present, and may be made to think, feel, will, and act according to the directions of the hypnotist. A hypnotized man may pleasurably swallow salt or quinine with a firm conviction that it is sugar, and may make the motions of swimming while on a dry floor, believing that he is surrounded by the coolness and splash of the water. By suggestion, he feels chilled during warm weather, and during a simple walk thinks that he is riding on a train or flying in an airplane. He may be made to hear music in in a silent place, to see colors and scenes and persons without their objective presence, and to smell rose-like fragrance around a skunk, a shrunk. Continuing, he may be directed successfully to read the thoughts of others, to review forgotten scenes in the earlier parts of his life, and while blindfolded, to read the pages of a book. In other words, a hypnotized person is partially or totally amenable to the suggestions of the mesmerist. The individuality of the subject becomes submerged in his subconscious mind and does not appear so long as he is responsive to the hypnotist. It does not benefit man, the image of God endowed with free choice, to act mechanically under the influence of the cosmic dream and to behave like an automaton under the spell of cosmic hypnosis. Legends and tales, couching in illustrative narratives, probably every conceivable quandary that has played on the human mind, abound in the ancient spiritual lore of India. Quote, has the Lord, who is untouched by the effects of his cosmic Maya, ever subjugated himself to the overpowering delusion he inflicts on those he has created? Unquote. Certainly, the Lord incarnate in a fully liberated being takes on something of the cosmic hypnosis in order to interrelate with his mortal contemporaries. When Jesus was tempted by Satan, his feelings were not a feigned struggle, they were real test. To underscore the power of delusion, a tale is told of an experiment agreed to by Lord Vishnu. Here we go. The subsection is titled A Legend of Vishnu and Narada, the Power of Delusion. Narada, one of the immortal rishis, and sometimes referred to as a divine trickster for the discomfiting situations he often engenders in order to test the gods, suggests to Vishnu an unusual demonstration. Quote, Lord, do you realize how potent the delusion is that you inflict on mortals? Would you not know better about its force if you applied it on yourself? Unquote. Ever ready to satisfy the questing heart of the devotee, Vishnu responded, quote, Narada, what do you want me to do? Unquote. Quote, attachment is not easily renounced when one is enveloped in delusive feelings, unquote, Narada said. And quoting again, why don't you go into the body of a mother sow and see what it's like to care for a family of piglets, unquote. Vishnu lightly accepted the proposal, but prudently added, quote, if you find me staying in the sow's body longer than 6 months, it will be for you to release me. After chanting an invocation, pierce the body of the sow, and I will come out. Unquote. Vishnu thereupon disappeared from Narada's sight into the body of a wild mother pig. 6 months passed, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months. In vain, Narada awaited Vishnu's return by his own accord. Finally armed with a javelin, Narada approached a rock cave where the sow lived with her young ones. When the mother sow observed Narada approaching with a spear, she bolted inside the cave with her family. Standing in the entranceway, Narada pleaded, quote, please, Lord, come out, unquote, to which the sow replied, quote, go away, Narada, don't bother me, unquote. As prearranged, Narada then chanted at the end of the invocation. The mother sow reluctantly emerged from the cave. A voice from within her said, quote, throw the javelin at me, Narada, unquote. Narada complied, and Vishnu laughingly sprang out of that dead cow's body. Oh, Narada, it felt awfully nice feeding those little piggies. How potent indeed is my delusion. I promise you, even the greatest among sinners who, counseled by a noble guru, unceasingly seeks me as the immutable spirit, will soon have a purified soul and be liberated. Unquote. That's nice. Verse 15. Quote, the lowest of men, perpetrators of evil and misguided fools whose discrimination has been stolen by Maya delusion, follow the paths of demonic beings, failing to take shelter in me, unquote. Hold on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. So again, verse 15, the lowest of men, perpetrators of evil and misguided fools, whose discrimination has been stolen by Maya, delusion, follow the path of demonic beings, failing to take shelter in me, unquote. Lord Krishna is revealing to Arjuna, quote, men who willingly respond to the evil quality in my cosmic delusion and who continue to indulge in promiscuous sex relations, cruelty, drinking, getting money by dishonest means, and so on, are manifesting the nature of demons that live in dark worlds. Such men do not become interested in the superior activating and good qualities of nature, and hence do not find the divine bliss trickling down from my spirits into their souls, unquote. Those who develop a taste for eating rotten cheeses and extremely hot spices do not enjoy mild milk cheese and delicately flavored food. Similarly, evil men who overindulge in gross pleasures pleasures become sense slaves, repeatedly acting under wrong influences without the desire to taste the subtle happiness of the soul. Though cosmic delusion has the strongest influence on evil men, even they can escape it by using discrimination, which can be rescued from Maya by meditating upon God. But if evildoers persist in their wrong habits, they are reborn after death in a demonic world. The Gita has emphasized again and again, however, that between all beings and their Creator is an immortal bond, indulgently elastic, but breakable never. None can stray so far as to withstand forever the pulling power of God's saving grace. For therefore, forsaking pride and obstinacy for his own sake, the evil man should cooperate with the Lord's redeeming power. He should seek God's company and should learn to meditate on God. Very interesting through this whole section with the Gita, emphasizing again and again, however, that between all beings there created is an immortal bond, and that no one can stray so far as to withstand forever the pulling power of God's saving grace, is a concept that Origen from early Christianity, one of the oldest church fathers, he that's one of the things he also stated as well. I'm not saying he read the Gita or anything like that, but it's interesting how when you come to universal truths, people tend to come to the same conclusions, don't they? Verse 16, quote, the afflicted, the questers for wisdom, the cravers for power here and in the hereafter, and the wise, these, O Arjuna, are the four kinds of righteous men who pursue me, unquote. Here the Gita enumerates the four kinds of virtuous actors in the earthly dream drama, who, to a lesser or greater degree, follow the wishes of the cosmic dreamer. All performers of good actions, whether their motives are selfish or unselfish, are traveling slowly or swiftly on the path of liberation. They are unlike the persons who by evil actions walk the torturous path of bondage. This subsection is titled The Four Kinds of God-Seeking Souls. Most people in distress seek God, though, with the selfish desire of banishing physical or mental ills. They pray to God for money or the healing of sickness for themselves or dear ones, or for some personal advantage such as avoiding a business failure or winning a lawsuit. Finding temporary relief by the grace of God and by good karma or by the power of prayer, they then easily forget Him. Absolutely. When other persons undergoing even slight suffering in this life receive superconscious intimations or memories of all the sufferings of past lives, knowing themselves capable of violent moods and foolish actions, and fearing the consequent pain and misfortune, such men make up their minds to find God as the permanent relief from all grief. These devotees, heeding the spiritual injunctions of a God-realized guru, embark on the path of yoga, divine union, through which they can learn to commune with God. Men of inconstant wisdom again and again seek divine aid during affliction, then revert to their interest in material solaces. Yet, even though their prayers are for selfish benefit, such men are performers of spasmodic good actions that remind them of God. They are on the right path. The second class of people are those who unconditionally seek wisdom in order to realize their divinity and to solve the mystery of life. They use their innate endowment of free choice to good purpose and are therefore better men than the previously mentioned selfish seekers of God. It is natural that the Lord responds more eagerly to unconditional suppliants for His love than to favor seekers. Absolutely. Oh, I cannot emphasize that enough. The third class of people who are those who seek complete fulfillment, which must necessarily include the giver along with his gifts. Such seekers look for God's help in attaining wealth, friends, health, power. They also practice yoga to attain bliss and all-fulfilling spiritual power in this life and in the beyond after death. In a balanced way, they are trying to find a good life as well as divine realization. The fourth class of men are the sages, defined in the next verse as the greatest of all. Their goal is not the acquisition of knowledge, nor do they seek the Lord for any ulterior purpose. They have already attained steady wisdom and divine communion. Such souls, liberated from the temptations and attachments of delusion, perpetually united to God with their hearts and unconditionally love Him. They live for Him, act for Him, and commune with Him just to respond to His love and revere Him willingly as a son naturally loves his father. Verses 17 and 18. Verse 17, quote, "Chief among them is the sage, ever constant and one-pointed in devotion. For I am exceedingly dear to the sage, and he exceedingly dear to me." Verse 18, quote, "All these four kinds of men are noble, but the sage I consider indeed as my own self. Unwaveringly is he settled in me alone as his utmost goal," unquote. And the commentary continues to elucidate. "Inwardly fixed in God, devoted only to Him, the sage is ever constant, nitya yukta, always tranquil, unchanged and unaffected by the oscillating waves of nature's delusive forces that play over the surface of his being. Naught can turn his attention from God as his supreme goal. He is the wisest who wholeheartedly and one-pointedly asks God for He is the dearest to him. When a devotee's yearning is deep enough, it brings the rare loving response from God. Such a man fulfills God's desire for a unique romance with each of His creatures. Therefore, among the four kinds of devotees, the sage who acts in this cosmic dream, with God consciousness only and with a supreme one-minded devotion is closest to Him. That devotee has an unconditional love. He loves God without a selfish motive, without a business-like arrangement. Quote, "I'll pray to thee, O Lord, provided thou dost give me health, money, and grace," unquote. Exactly. And that's one of those things I've said over and over again about the quote-unquote lazy Christian. And because that's what I experienced around me, like Christians growing up as a Catholic at least, and there was never some kind of deep connection. It's all just about the ritual. Bow your head, ask for the things you need and want, and it's just is that really? Anyways, continuing, between the wise devotee and God there is a deeper exchange that of fathomless love and affection. The sage's devotion is spontaneously actuated without reservation because it is offered in full faith that the loving, omniscient Creator, the sole giver of all things, knows every necessity of every being. The sage is content with whatever the Lord deems best to give or withhold. And that's the whole key to being unattached in this world, is this whole idea. The sage is content with whatever the Lord deems best to give or withhold, right? Roll with it. Excuse me. If one's conditional seeking of the Lord, he is conscious that the suppliant is more anxious for his inferior or superior gifts than for the giver himself. It is not wrong to pray to God for necessities, but when the devotee prays for divine communion, he should not be hoping in the background of his mind for the bestowal of a favor. His mind should not be concentrated on gifts, but solely on the giver. When the devotee can do that in reality, all the giver's gifts also, as the Bible says, are added unto them. Quote, "But seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." Unquote. Exactly. Verse 19, quote, "After many incarnations, the sage attains me, realizing, quote, the Lord is all-pervading," unquote. "A man so illumined is hard to find," unquote. A rare devotee is he who discerns only the omnipresent beam of spirit that creates the many dreams of births and deaths, including his own. Such a man, concentrating on the cosmic beam alone, becomes liberated from the witnesses of the many dreams of births and deaths, forced upon mortals who are infested with lusts and pursued by karma. He can quicken his evolution by living many lives materialized in daily visions. A person who emotionally identifies himself with the daily dream, the motion pictures of his life, does not find liberation because he becomes entangled in the web of birth and deaths. He does not realize that in an average lifespan of 60 years, a man is quote-unquote born or reawakened 21,900 times and dies, or enters the sleep or quote-unquote little death state of 21,900 times. Certain yoga treatises explain that with every exhalation a person dies, and with every inhalation is reborn. On the average, man breathes 18 times a minute, and you can find that in the Upanishads. Some yogis say that with every quote-unquote lub, sound of the heart, there is a birth. With every quote-unquote dub, sound of the heart, there is a death. According to that memory or theory, a man lives and dies perhaps 70 times a minute. According to the normal beat per minute of his heart in a lifetime, a person would have many more experiences of heartbeat births and deaths than those involved in inhalations and exhalations. Medical science claims that a normal person's brain is substantially changed every 8 years. According to that theory, a man is reborn 8 times in a lifetime of 64 years. And this section here is subtitled Kriya Yoga reduces the, quote, many incarnations, unquote, required for realization. Some sages say that evil men who die without the desire for liberation may experience bodily births and deaths during many million-year cycles. However, Lahiri Mayasaya, Sri Yukaswar, and their advanced disciples have testified from their own realization that people with past good karma can quicken their evolution by Kriya Yoga practice and find liberation in 3 or 6 or 12 or 24 or 48 years in one lifetime, a liberation that ordinarily comes to a righteous person without conscious effort only in a million years of births and deaths by natural evolution. A, quote, righteous person, unquote, in this sense is one who lives in harmony with his soul and offends not the laws of nature. By bullock cart and boat, and by a circuitous way, it would take many years for a man to go around the earth. But by the fastest airplane and the shortest route, a person may traverse the earth in a few days and possibly in a few hours. The time will come when this distance will be covered in a matter of minutes. Similarly, the individual who makes no conscious effort may take countless lives to become liberated, but a wise man, through his knowledge of quickening evolution by Kriya Yoga, may find emancipation in one life. A wisdom expert, unaccomplished Kriya Yogi may banish the karma of his past unfinished actions by living many births and deaths enacted in daily visions during samadhi. In this way, within 3 years, he may work out all his past desires of many lives by materializing them in visions through the power of samadhi. A sage understands that a human incarnation is a motion picture of many dreams. Such an illumined devotee does not have to go through many mortal births and deaths. On the superconscious level, he can condense the requisite karmic experience of many lives into the dreams of the present. This subsection is titled Fulfillment of Reincarnation, Making Desires Through the Superconscious Visions. An advanced yogi living in the bleak Himalayas need not go to a city or be reborn in a new body in order to work out some lingering desire. If he is hankering for curries, for example, he can create a quote-unquote technicolored, true to all the senses motion picture of tasty curries and enjoy them in his novel way, but by wisdom his karmic desires for food are dissipated forever. On a grand scale, Mahavatar Babaji created a golden palace to fulfill a long-forgotten desire of Lahiri Mayasaya, an event I have recorded in Autobiography of a Yogi. The quote-unquote miracle was explained thus: there is nothing inexplicable about this materialization. The whole cosmos is a projected thought of the Creator. The heavy clod of the earth, floating in the space, is a dream of God's. He made all things out of his mind, and even as man in his dream consciousness reproduces and vivifies a creation with its creatures, in tune with the infinite all-accomplishing will, Babaji is able to command the elemental atoms to combine and manifest themselves in any form. This golden palace, instantaneously brought into being, is real in the same sense that the earth is real. Babaji created this beautiful mansion out of his mind and is holding its atoms together by the power of his will, even as God's thoughts created the earth and his will maintains it. Unquote. It was by means of a vision of God fulfilled to my great satisfaction a desire to be a world philanthropist. By this experience, he showed me the freeing power of visions. In my travels, visiting many countries of the world, I could not help feel sickened at the sight of the slums throughout Europe and Asia. A desire to relieve the world of its physical poverty lodged itself into my consciousness. The desire grew and kept corroding my mind. Subconsciously, I wished to be a multi-billionaire so that I would have the means to alleviate this human suffering. but I realized the moral limitations of material life and the improbability of gathering that sum of human good. To carry on such a program might indeed take not one but many incarnations. It was an irrational and presumptuous desire of which I decided I must rid myself. It was my spiritual duty to perform in this life only those actions that God so ordained and pointed out to me in my periods of silence. Nevertheless, the pain of suffering humanity would not release its grip on my heart. One night, as I meditated, a vision stole over me. I found myself a multi-billionaire businessman. In my vision, I traveled with engineers, scientists, artists, architects, industrial and agricultural experts through every slum in the world, building modern houses, opening cooperative industries and farms and medical centers, and feeding and giving gainful employment to all needy people. When every one of the 1,500 million members of the global family had a job and was well fed, I was supremely happy. Then my vision vanished, leaving me completely contented. God had satisfied in a few minutes the desire unlikely to be fulfilled even by several incarnations of hard earthly working and planning. Alas, the captive world, prisoner of its own karmic bonds, could not avail itself of the freeing influence of my cosmic vision. Each being dreams its own environment and ultimately its own divine awakening according to God's orderly evolutionary plan and compassionate grace. Therefore, God would not like everyone to avoid work, service, mental effort, and perseverance, nor to try to perform philanthropic actions by satisfying themselves only in dreams and visions. The average person, in fact, cannot produce true visions, only hallucinatory imaginings. At best, so he is unable thereby to free himself from duties through this method. But the liberated or nearly liberated yogi who can create visions at will can in this manner destroy all karmic effects of his actions and prevent new desire seeds from taking root. Visions may include the detailed happenings of many years, yet since they are seen through the spiritual eye on the superconscious plane, not on the material plane of relativity, they occupy an incredibly short span of time. Many incarnations are thereby accelerated by condensation into one or a few lifetimes. The yogi thus rejects the slow-paced formula of, quote, many incarnations, unquote, as a necessary prelude to his final entry into the kingdom of God. By Kriya Yoga, he hastens his evolution multifold, and by employing visions, he dismisses the reincarnation-making lingering desires. Above all, by divine communion and samadhi meditation, he realizes the Supreme Lord as the all in all, the singular, all-pervading reality. Krishna says in this stanza, even a wise man attains me only after many births, because a yogi aware of my omnipresence is rare, unquote. These words have a wonderfully cryptic meaning. Quote, wise men attain me only after many births, because it is so seldom that even a sage understands that I, as the indweller in the tiniest atom in the soul of man, am the nearest of the near, attainable instantly, unquote. Let me go back and read that again since I just butchered it. Wise men attain me only after many births, because it is so seldom that even a sage understands that I, as the indweller of the tiniest atom in the soul of man, am the nearest of the near, attainable instantly, unquote. All right. So I'm going to put up the break sign because I need to use the restroom and do a few things here, and I'll be right back in about 5 minutes or so. Here's a little Indian music. Okay, here we go. Oh, oops. No, that. There you go. That's what I wanted. All right, continuing. Which quote-unquote God should be worshipped? Quote, led by their own inclinations, their discrimination stolen by this or that craving, pursuing this or that cultic injunction, men seek lesser gods, unquote. Let me just here make sure the sounds. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, a butterfly mind willy-nilly sails on with the breeze of its innate moods acquired in past lives. Indiscriminately it dwells on various blossoms of desires, or it's fitfully engaged in superficial relation. Oh, excuse me. Indiscriminately it dwells on various blossoms of desires, or is fitfully engaged in superficial religious worship, drinking the honey of their meager pleasures or temporary inspirations. Such a restless, shallow mind is for a time engrossed in any dear object or action, deifying it and thus forgetting to seek the supreme nectar of bliss and God realization, which is the entire idea behind do not make idols before me, by the way. We'll get into that more when we get into the Course in Miracles. Many people in this world become engaged without discrimination in the performance of various material and religious actions, according to their innate natures, inclinations, and habits of past lives and of this life. They devote themselves to worship of money, fame, power, and so on. They deify the object of their desires and the lesser gifts of God. They thus forget to worship the God of gods, the giver of all gifts. The choice of most people concerning religious practices and beliefs is similarly indiscriminate and whim-led. Ritualism or dogmatism is their, quote, lesser God, unquote. And remember, this is somebody speaking from a Hindu perspective where they have seemingly multitudes of different gods, right? So just to keep that in mind, this entire commentary is about the one being here. Every person, by self-analysis, should detect his injurious mental and material habits. He should cease to identify himself with his, quote, second nature, unquote, and rather assist his true nature of the soul, loving the divine bliss of spirit, to emerge from behind the clouds of indiscretion, ignorantly formed useless habits, and spiritual indifference. Verses 21 and 22. 21, quote, whatever embodiment, a god incarnate, a saint, or a deity, a devotee strives faithfully to worship, it is I who make his devotion unflinching. 22, quote, absorbed in that devotion, intent on the worship of that embodiment, a devotee thus gains the fruit of his longings, yet those fulfillments are verily granted by me alone, unquote. And the commentary elucidates, a true devotee expressing devotion to God through any lesser or higher mode of worship will find response to his desire from the Supreme Being. He who worships representative forms of the Godhead because for him the Absolute is unfathomable, he will receive the grace of God that blesses his devotional endeavor. This next section is titled Formless Spirit Manifests in Whatever Form is Dear to the Devotee. Therefore, even the worshipper of lesser gods, personifications of the Supreme Deity, does not go divinely unrecognized or unrewarded. If a person of deep devotion offers homage to the form of any deity symbolically representing God, he silently responds by materializing that form in vision before the devotee. God is secreted in that manifestation, although the form itself reveals only a modicum of spirit. In India, cosmic nature and the infinite in one common depiction are symbolized in the form of Kali, the mother of the universe, standing on the breast of her husband Shiva, or God. This symbolism, unraveled, signifies the cosmic nature does not test or tempt the devotee with delusion if he is consciously united to the infinite, the breast of Shiva. Many pious Hindu worship God and his immanence in the cosmos in the form of Shiva and Kali. No matter what mode of worship the devotee adopts to find God, the Lord accepts it, if the devotion be genuine. This divine acceptance enables the mind of the devotee to concentrate on the spirit behind the specific symbol. When a great devotee worships a symbolic deity as God, he manifests his unseen omnipresence by a visible display of that symbolic form. He appears before, talks with, and blesses the earnest devotee through the form that is beloved by him, which to me makes perfect sense. I mean, you know, there's a famous Shakespeare line, something to the effect of, by any other fragrance or smell, a rose is still a rose, or something like that. I forget what it is, but it's just the whole idea that like we have all these ideas of what we call God, with names and this and that and everything else. And there's one thing in the Tantra Loka books. There's one line which talks about vikalpas, which is what in their term is called a thought construct. And all these thought constructs are things that we all have to get over in order to, actually reach the divine state. And one of the thought constructs they talk about is the idea that only your religion is the only religion, and that is by in and of itself a thought construct that needs to be conquered. And I really appreciate something like that, because that is absolutely just the truth. And I think if we are going to be mature spiritually about looking toward our own spiritual development, I think every single one of us has to sort of take a look at that and accept the fact that, like, it doesn't matter who calls what God, as long as you have genuine devotion to what spirit is, then that's all that matters. And I absolutely agree that God doesn't care one way or the other, which is, if he did, then he would be a lot like us, which would be a very imperfect, kind of egotistical type of mindset, which I don't accept. I just don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyways, continuing. The symbolical form of God appearing to a Hindu devotee as Kali, Durga, Vishnu, Shiva, or Krishna, for example, becomes a permanent blueprint in the ether. If any other devotee concentrates very deeply on that deity which has actually been seen and worshipped by a great saint, that same manifestation appears in living form to satisfy the devotee's true heart call. Similarly, any devotee fervently worshipping God in the form of Jesus Christ, the Holy Mother, Saint Francis, Babaji, Lahiri Mayasaya, or any saint or true guru, either mentally or before an image or picture, may see that form first in a vision and then by deeper spiritual advancement as a materialized being, living and talking. Any devotee who ardently meditates on the picture or form of a true guru or any other master becomes attuned to him, imbibing his qualities, and ultimately feels in that saint the presence of God. As people can talk back and forth over the radio by tuning in, so a devotee may tune in with a saint and see him televised in the crystal sphere of the spiritual eye. That is what is implied in this stanza of the Bhagavad Gita. Elsewhere, it says, quote, "In whatever way people are devoted to me, in that measure, according to their desire, understanding, and mode of worship, I manifest myself to them," unquote. And that was verse 16, which we already read. After all, the omnipresent God knows all his true devotees, no matter in what form they love him. Christ said, quote, "Are not two sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father, without your Father," unquote. If God's omniscience is aware of a small sparrow, how much more deeply is he cognizant of his true lovers? The omniscient alone, who knows the hearts of his children, answers their prayers in many ways. Devotion shown to God always evokes some form of plain or mysterious response. No true devotee is ignored by God. However, shallow seekers who worship astral deities for the fulfillment of desires do not realize that it is God who will fulfill their wishes through the instrumentality of the divine beings. The Lord is consciously present in all higher beings and in their devotees. It is He who is Chintanmani, quote, the jewel that grants all desires, unquote. Verse 23, quote, "But men of scant knowledge, worshipping lesser gods, receive limited results. The devotees of the deities go unto them, my devotees come unto me," unquote. So the commentary continues, quote, "Those who adore the starry dream beings shining by a little borrowed light of my omniscience fail to perceive my subtle luminescence spread everywhere, sustaining the manifestation of all entities. Worshippers of little gods, lesser aspects of my omnipresent being, go unto them and then must be reborn on earth. Devotees who everywhere perceive my cosmic light commingle with it and do not have to experience further dream motion pictures of births and deaths," unquote. Men of small understanding, worshipping lesser deities for the boons they are known to grant, receive those favors and after death attain the beautiful astral spheres, but at the expiration of good karma. they have to return again to the earth. By the same amount of spiritual labor these short-sighted worshippers could have gained by adoring the Supreme Being and dissolving all darkness, all the darkness of human karma in the quenchless light of ecstasy, the eternal blessed spheres from which there is no return. It would be foolish for a person to work as an employee 18 hours a day for his lifetime to earn only $120,000. If in the same number of years, by the same amount of intelligent labor invested in running a business of his own, he could earn $1,000,000. Similarly, man is short-sighted to worships lesser astral gods, who, too, must expire at the end of their long lifespan, just to gain favors and temporary stay in the beautiful astral worlds. Why not determinedly seek the Supreme God, the Lord of all other gods, and attain for all time endless blessedness and freedom? Devotees who commune with the Supreme Spirit in this life dissolve all their rebirth-making karma in the fire of highest ecstasy and thus reach the eternal abode, never again to return to the troublesome earth. What could be greater than getting in touch with life of life, the maker of the law of karma, the quote-unquote boss of the universe? What use in bothering with his lesser manifestation, his humble employees? Indeed. Krishna's word to Arjuna, words of promise from spirit to the devotee, are sweetly reassuring to all of us. Quote, my devotee comes unto me, unquote. Verse 24. Quote, men without wisdom consider me, the unmanifest, as assuming embodiment, like a mortal being taking a form, not understanding my unsurpassable state, my unchangeable, unutterable nature, unquote. Ignorant devotees who have visions of lesser deities in meditation do not know that all those forms are merely temporary, meager manifestations of the essentially unmanifested spirit. They concentrate on the finite forms of the infinite God and thus, in their minds, limit him. As unseen vapor can be condensed into water and frozen into an iceberg, so the invisible, impersonal God can be projected into a form by devotion's frost and worshipped as a personality. However, a devotee is foolish if he limits God to that form and forgets his omnipresence. A great master, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who saw God constantly as Mother Kali, conversing often with her, later said, quote, I had to destroy that finite form of my mother with the sword of wisdom, to behold her as the formless infinite, unquote. Many devotees in India, for instance, limit their conceptions of Godhead to images of Krishna. They put an idol to sleep under the sheets on the altar at night and quote-unquote awaken it by singing chants before it in the morning, placing the image in a standing position on the altar. They lay food and fruits in the front of the idol each morning and evening, a symbolic act of feeding it. If a devotee performs such worship with sincere devotion, of course God receives the spirit of love behind the offering. But a devotee who makes his worship too personal obliterates the thought of God's impersonal, all-pervading nature. He who worships God merely as a finite form will not attain the transcendental divine union with his infinite nature. Amen. Amen to that. This next big section is called Perceiving the Spirit Behind the Dream Shadows of Nature, verse 25. Seemingly eclipsed by my own Yogamaya, seemingly eclipsed by my own Yogamaya, the delusion born of the triple qualities of nature, I am unseen by men. The bewildering world knows not me, the unborn, the deathless, unquote. And the commentary continues. The changeable, causeless, invisible light of cosmic consciousness remains hidden behind the dream shadows of creation, unperceived by its countless dream entities. Only a few wise men, detached in their outlook by a practice of yoga ecstasy, look up into the spiritual eye and through its omniscient vision see the pure, spherical cosmic beam, the manifested power of the unmanifested spirit that produces within its heart the technicolored motion pictures of life. Just as the shadows of motion pictures hide the beam that produces them, so God's light is hidden in the delusive scenes of life, all shadowed by the triple qualities, except to the uplifted, awakened spiritual gaze of the sage. The cosmic beam and the spirit within it are invisible, unnoticeable. Here we go, a nice picture. Verse 26, O Arjuna, I am aware of the creatures of the past. Quote, O Arjuna, I am aware of the creatures of the past, the present, and the future, but me no one knows, unquote. And the commentary continues. If you are a dreamer in a good memory, With a good memory, you can relive in your mind a past dream. It might have been one in which you had a heated argument with your brothers. You would be aware of all the details of your dream, but your dream brothers would possess no such memories. A cosmic dreamer, on the other hand, possessing omniscient memory and omnipresence, is aware not only of his present cosmic dreams, but of all that went on within him in the past, and of all that is going to happen with him in the future, appearing and disappearing in his spaceless, timeless consciousness of an eternal present. But, alas, none of the transient, living, sentient human beings in this cosmic dream, except those who are liberated saints, are aware of the unchangeable light of cosmic consciousness that creates within its omniscience the cosmic dream pictures of all time. Human consciousness is limited by the threefold relativity of time, past, present, and future. Man usually forgets past happenings, has consciousness of the present incidents in his life, and is unaware of the future. But God's consciousness is ever aware throughout eternity. Divine consciousness has no past, no future, because it is never interrupted, like man's by death or limitation. Eternal consciousness has one time, the ever-present. God looks through the window of infinite consciousness on the films of finite happenings of the past, present, and future shown on the screen of time and space, continuously moving backward and forward in an eternal now. Mortals are not aware of God because of their identification with his cosmic dream. Only liberated yogis and united with the Lord are aware of him and know all the past, present, and future happenings that are going on within him in an ever now. God's presence is veiled in his cosmic dream and in its sentient creatures behind the Yoga Maya, the magical dream pictures of cosmic nature, stained with triple qualities. God's beam is adroitly hidden. Human beings can behold one another on the screen of cosmic delusion, but they cannot perceive the cause, the unseen cosmic light. Within this magical shadow of Yoga Maya, God is secreted beyond even the most subtle understandings of man. Yet the Lord, unaffected by delusion, is ever aware that he veils himself by his self-created Maya. The liberating beings tear off this shroud and gaze on the eternal beauty. Unquote. Verse 27, quote, O descendants of Bharata, scorcher of foes, Arjuna, at birth all creatures are immersed in delusive ignorance, which is called moha, by the delusion of the pairs of opposites springing from longing and aversion. Unquote. The commentary continues, a man witnessing a dream is affected from the very start by its pleasant or unpleasant nature. Similarly, as soon as a human being is born in a particular part of this cosmic dream, he begins to respond emotionally. He views the pairs of opposites as either pleasurable or disagreeable according to his individual liking or disliking. Thus, beholding the drama of contrary elements, he knows desire and aversion. Succumbing to the impulses of likes and dislikes, the discrimination and free choice of his soul are overwhelmed, and he is plunged into delusive ignorance, moha, the ego's indivisible cohesion to delusion. The subjection from birth to the oppositional state of delusion, good and evil, is man's state of, quote, original sin, unquote. A person who looks out of a clean window and who then gazes through a dirty window will first see the objects outside clearly and in their natural colors, and then obscurely as though dimmed by darkness. Similarly, according to the good or evil character of his own dream drama, a man is happily or adversely affected. This next subsection is titled To be born in a physical body, to breathe at all, is to be subject to Maya. To be born in a physical body at all is a clue that man is in soul ignorance and has not realized his identity to formless spirit. The exceptions are masters who return here at God's command and to guide their stumbling brothers. To breathe at all is to breathe in Maya. Thus, from their very birth, children are exposed to cosmic delusion and grow up helplessly under it. God gives them delusion first, not himself, in order to carry on his dramatic scheme of creation. If he did not cover himself with the veils of Maya, there would be no cosmic game of creation in which men play hide and seek with him and try to find him as the grand prize. When man is disillusioned by the lesser temptations of sense pleasures, he seeks the supreme temptation of life, God's bliss. In this way, man learns to use his divine gifts of discrimination and free choice to find the reality behind the appearances of life. At birth, human beings fall into delusion that they be disposed to play at least a little while with God. Then, motivated by discrimination or by suffering or misbehaving, they make the effort to return forever to his eternal, blessed home. Knowing this truth, no devotee should be despondent about finding ultimate liberation. When the water in a pot is agitated, the moving water disturbs any reflected object. Similarly, when the calm waters of a man's heart are disturbed by likes and dislikes, he is unable to solve his problems and to make wise decisions. Nor can a restless heart reflect the inward presence of the blissful soul. 100%. Owing to the prenatal habits of desires and aversions, a human being is agitated from birth by the triple qualities of cosmic Maya. Except the wise, all men are born with delusion, moha, attachment to body consciousness. When an individual from early childhood shows signs of soul qualities, that person has been born with inherent superconsciousness earned by good karma in the past. Verse 28. Quote, but righteous men, their sins obliterated and subject no longer to the oppositional delusions, worship me steadfastly. Unquote. Advanced yogis do not automatically come under the sway of delusion when they are reborn. Having performed good actions in past lives, they have quelled the agitating effects of past karma by self-discipline. Thus, the calm waters of their hearts are free from the ripples of likes and dislikes. They devotedly concentrate on the spirit reflected within the human soul. Men of good actions, without sinful, misery-making attachments and repulsions to sense objects, find their hearts free from the battle of opposite qualities. Wholeheartedly and with purified minds, they worship God firmly as the abode of all goodness. Verse 29, quote, those who seek deliverance from decay and death by clinging to me know Brahman, the Absolute, the all-inclusiveness of Adhyatma, the soul as the repository of spirit, and all secrets of karma, unquote. And commentary continues, the devotee on waking in God realizes that he has been dreaming through Maya about dual experiences of life governed by the law of karma, actions, and their fruits. Wise men do not rely on imperfect material methods of medicine, diet, or magic in seeking freedom from ultimate mortal limitations of disease, old age, and death. Instead, they find shelter in God, the only permanent protection against the devastations of misery. Identified with him, yogis know all secrets of the law of karma, which binds human lives to the wheel of births and rebirths. They also know the way of escape from the wheel and all other deep mysteries and realities hidden in the soul, the omniscient, individualized image of spirit. Yeah, and I can tell you honestly, I've been able to tap into that a little bit myself. It's crazy when you do it for the first time. Kind of blows your mind. Verse 30, quote, those who perceive me in the Abin Bhuta, I'll just do the English. Those who perceive me in the physical, the astral, and the spiritual, with heart united to the soul, continue to perceive me even at the time of death. Unquote. By practicing yoga, pardon me, I gotta get something out of my eye. By practicing yoga, the devotee learns to perceive the presence of God in his physical, astral, and causal bodies, and learns to unite his heart with the bliss of the soul. Such a God-conscious yogi retains his divine consciousness even at the time of the colossal earthquake of death. This next subsection is titled, Why the Ordinary Man is Terrified at the Onset of Physical Death. In order to keep the continuity of God awareness at the time of the most important event, earthly transition, the yogi must be highly advanced when the quote-unquote canary, an ordinary devotee, is caught by the quote-unquote cat approaching death. It forgets its divine warblings and starts screeching in terror. It is, therefore, necessary to establish the ecstatic divine union so deeply that severs trails of disease or the approach of death will not cause the devotee to scream in dread and to forget the holy presence of God. A great master, even during the state of painful death, can commune with his maker. And this is interesting, too, because I did read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and the last tablet, if I'm not mistaken, or one of the last couple tablets, talks about how to basically die, like what you're supposed to do when death comes. And it's very similar to what he's saying right here. I mean, almost identical, to tell you the truth. Continuing, the Lord's tests are sometimes very subtle. Jesus, during his agony on the cross, for a minute felt God slipping away from him. So he cried, quote, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Unquote. Other fully illuminated masters have similarly known a moment or two of trial at the time of death, yet, like Christ, they emerged triumphant. And I've also pointed out that Aramaic speakers in Syria have translated that to my God, something like to the effect of for this is why I came onto the earth, or something like that. Like, I have completed my task, that type of thing. I forget exactly what it is. Anyways, continuing. Yes, the ordinary man's center of consciousness is the body. He is constantly troubled by its changes. He should practice meditation until he feels his consciousness centered on God. In that state, the devotee has no more concern about his body. He feels divinity within and without. When his body, mind, and soul are saturated with the Lord, he can rise above all tests of dire sufferings and the approach of death. Experiencing the unparalleled joy of God, the devotee forgets all pain. An ordinary man usually leads a reckless life, little understanding its purpose. He does not realize that his whole life is a spiritual military training school, in which he should discipline his body, mind, and emotions to achieve victory at the final battle of death on the last day of his earthly sojourn. So true. Lacking this realization, the mortal man finds himself unprepared for death at the time of the soul. With its ego consciousness gradually retires to the astral and causal bodies. Man's dimming mind is then disturbed by the awakened memory of all kinds of battling good and evil karma of his life and of past lives. Then he finds death inexorably separating his soul, encased in the astral and causal bodies, from his physical body. The ego is aghast to discover that the long familiar bodily instrument is becoming inert and insensible at the approach of death. Accustomed to think and feel with the body, the ego is bewildered and senseless when deprived of the brain and the sense organs. The ego enters a tug of war with death. So long as the desire for physical life remains, the ego lodges adamantly in the brain and spine, even while a state of apparent death is manifesting in the physical form. When the ego utterly fails to arouse the paralyzed body, it reluctantly makes its exit in the astral body into the astral world. Then the ego sleeps for a while in the astral body, or is conscious of a life in an astral world. After a while, well, as we know from reading the Journey of Souls book, that this last part seems to be the case. After a while, the ego begins to be disturbed by its innate subconscious material desires and by the muffled longing to express itself through a physical vehicle. At this time, the cosmic law of karma, acting according to the desires and nature of the physically embodied ego, sends it to be reborn on earth to parents similar in certain karmic respects to his wandering soul, which again is right out of Journey of Souls book of reincarnation, in which I did a audio, if you guys didn't know. You can find that on the channel. The parents to be unknowingly generate during coitus, I guess, an astral light of uniting positive negative currents in their coccygeal regions, which is referred to the sperm and ovum. When the sperm and its genetic and karmic potential from the father unites with the ovum and its pattern from the mother, there is a flash of astral light from its fertilized cell that attracts and guides the physically disembodied ego with its compatible karmic blueprint into the haven of its new primal cell of life. And you know what? Let me see if I can find this. Flash of light during conception. Ah, indeed. Well, I just picked the first one, but there we go. So take a look at this. April 2016. Scientists just captured the flash of light that sparks when a sperm meets an egg. I just wanted to show you. I think I've shown this before. I just wanted to show that to you guys because, you know, when people talk about
intuitive nature of some of these spiritual people. This was 2016. He wrote this book in like late 1940s, and between that and 1955, right before he died. And so I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty interesting. It's those kinds of things where, somebody, or I should say, just an entire group of these spiritual masters can understand nature in an intuitive sense in that way, to know something that is only discovered by scientists. I mean, what is it, 70 years later or something like that? It's impressive. It's impressive to see that level of knowledge, and it being actually like corroborated within science itself. I think that's pretty cool. Anyways, continuing. A yogi thoroughly trains himself throughout his life, practicing non-attachment to the objects of sense and harmoniously uniting his ego with his soul by disconnecting life force and mind from the senses. This section is subtitled How the Yogi Prepares Himself During Life to be Victorious at Death. Thus he can withdraw his ego at will from the material world. Then, by a sensory motor relaxation, he learns to withdraw his ego, life force, and mind from the physical body into the inner organs and spine. Oh, and by the way, when a body is born and is formed in the mother's womb, the very, very first thing formed is the spine, and then the brain. So just to show you that apparently it really is the the channel in which we can actually physically connect spiritually to something. So by voluntary relaxation, he withdraws his ego, life force, and mind upwards through the 7 cerebral spinal centers and unites them with the bliss of the soul. Finally, he withdraws his soul, detached from its ego nature, his bodily operative consciousness, his life force, and his astral and causal bodies, and unites it with spirit. Thus, an expert yogi who can merge his soul at will in God and who is free from all material desires does not ordinarily feel, at the approach of death, any physical or mental agony or the tug of war between death and physical desires. Finding his karmic term in the bodily prison over, he gladly makes a quote-unquote grand exit. He does not again return to this world unless he is commanded by God, for he has learned all the lessons that this earth was created to teach. And that is the end of that chapter. We are 2 hours in. And let's see here, chapter 8. How far along? We are at chapter 8. That's page 809. All right, I'm going to make an attempt. Let's make an attempt to get through chapter 8. Okay, let's do this. We'll see when my wife gets home. She's scheduled to get home between an hour or two. Definitely an hour, after an hour. But between the hour and 2 hour mark, she might come back. Okay, so chapter 8, the imperishable absolute, beyond the cycles of creation and dissolution. And the main subsection, the main first big subsection is called the manifestations of spirit in the macrocosm and microcosm. Verses 1 and 2. Arjuna said, 1. O best of the Purushas, Krishna, please tell me, what is Brahman spirit? What is Adhyatma, the Kudastha consciousness underlying all manifestations and existing as the souls of all beings in the cosmos? What is karma, cosmic and meditative actions born of Om? What is Abhibhuta, the consciousness immanent in the physical creatures in physical cosmos? And what is Adidaiva, the consciousness manifest in astral bodies and the astral cosmos? And verse number 2, O slayer of the demon Madhu, Krishna, what is Adiyajna, the supreme creative and cognizing spirit? And in what manner is Adiyajna present as the soul in this body? And how, at the time of death, art thou to be known by the self-disciplined? Unquote. And the, apparently this is a very, they're obvious questions, so here we go, the commentary, very short. The terms used by Krishna in the last 2 stanzas of chapter 7 have bewildered Arjuna. He beseeches the Lord to enlighten him about the cosmic mysteries. Verse 3. The blessed Lord replied, the indestructible, the supreme, quote, the indestructible and supreme spirit as is Brahman. Its undifferentiated manifestation as Kudasta Chaitanya and as the individual soul is called Adhyatma. The Om, cosmic vibration, or the Visarga, that causes the birth and sustenance and dissolution of beings and their various natures is termed karma, cosmic action. Unquote. And the commentary continues. The cosmic dreamer, from his divine consciousness, creates by Om vibration the dreams of physical cosmos and human bodies. He reflects himself therein as the omnipresent Kudasta consciousness and expresses facets of his individuality as dream souls. The cosmic dreamer, in order to carry on continuously his objective, cosmic vibratory dream drama of nature and the actings of all dream beings on the stage of life, governs them all by the disciplining rhythmic law of karma. The spirit is imperishable, ever existent in the changeless non-vibratory sphere. As the moon is able to reflect itself on objects as a shining light, so the nature of spirit enables it to reflect itself as cosmic intelligence, Kudasta Chaitanya, and as individual souls shining through physical bodies. The cosmic vibration, Om, with its law of duality and relativity, emanates from spirit and causes the births, sustenance, and dissolution of all matter and beings through the law of karma. This law of action holds sway over all activities of man and nature. Arjuna asks 7 questions in stanza 1 and 2. 1 about spirit, 2 about spirit's pure reflection as cosmic intelligence and as the individual soul, 3 about karma, cosmic and meditative actions born of Om, 4 about the physical body and the physical universe, 5 about the astral body and astral cosmos, 6 about the supreme creative cognizing spirit and how it is present in the body as soul, and 7 about the yogi's perceptions of God at the time of death. In this third stanza, the first 3 questions are answered. In the fourth stanza, the fourth, fifth, 6 questions are answered. The 7th question is answered in the 5th and 6th stanzas. The 3 questions explained in this section are about the spirit, the soul, and karma, the cosmic Om vibration that manifests itself eternally as meditative and spiritual actions and externally as bodily and cosmic activities. This next section is subtitled number 1, Para Brahman, the absolute and all-inclusive spirit. The transcendental supreme spirit exists in relation to the vibratory cosmos, but is also beyond it. Sat, or being, God, the Father of the Christian Bible, the Para-Brahman of the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedanta philosophy, Param Atman of the yogis, and Para Purusha, transcendental spirit, are various names of this unchangeable supreme spirit existing beyond the dream structures of vibratory creation. A man in half-asleep state can remain conscious of himself and of his restfulness without thoughts or dreams. Similarly, the unmanifested spirits can remain as ever-existing, ever-conscious, ever-new joy without the dreams of creations. In this state, spirit is without thoughts or vibrations. Its existence, consciousness, and bliss merge as one single perception, as the undifferentiated absolute. Spirit keeps its existence, its consciousness, and its dream creations dissolved in one joyous perception of itself. As a man half-consciously can perceive a dream, so the unmanifested spirit, after creating its cosmic dream, keeps its consciousness divided into 3 parts. In the first state, the transcendental dreamless spirit, or supreme Brahman, exists beyond its vibratory dream creations, beyond the cosmic Om. In the second state, spirit materializes its consciousness into a vibratory dream universe. This objective cosmic dream structure is variously spoken of as the cosmic Om, the Abhasha Chaitanya, or reflected light of Kudasta intelligence, as reflected creative consciousness of God, or the Word, the intelligent Holy Ghost vibration, which is the same as the intelligent cosmic Prakriti, the cosmic sound, or cosmic light. Still, other terms for this objective dream universe are the Mahatattva, or the great vibratory elements, and Mother Nature, or the cosmic Virgin Mary, the cosmic intelligent consort of God. This cosmic vibratory force derives its power from Kudasta Chaitanya, the pure reflection of God's intelligence in creation, and is the mother of all spiritual elevating, material activating, and evil obstructing activities, the 3 gunas in the world. This sounds very similar to the Gnostic mythological writing as well, actually. Almost spot on with some of it. We'll be getting into that soon. The Cosmic Om is also called Visarga, or, quote, the two dots of duality, unquote. Because of the dual law of relativity and the triple qualities of the gunas, it produces the cosmic film of delusion. God's beam of consciousness passing through this cosmic film of relativity produces the cosmic dream pictures. When these two dots of duality become one with God, the cosmic Om manifests him. A yogi listening to the cosmic sound of Om can see on the external side the dream of creation and all activities issuing out of it. On the inner side, he hears the cosmic sound that melts into the absolute bliss of Brahman. The unmanifested spirit uses the third part of its consciousness to reflect itself as the undifferentiated intelligence of creation, which becomes differentiated and active in reflective creative Om vibration, as previously noted. This intelligence shining on creation is called the Kudasta or Christ intelligence. Quote, the only begotten Son of God, unquote, the sole, undistorted, pure, reflected intelligence of the transcendental God in creation, or in Sanskrit, the Tat. In the unmanifested state, the spirit is ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. When it dreams creation, it becomes a trinity. The transcendental God, dreaming through the Kudasa intelligence and cosmic vibratory intelligence, becomes the objective dreams of causal, astral, and physical universes. The unmanifested spirit, thus in the creative state, becomes the three, Om, Tat, and Sat, Holy Ghost, Son, and Father, or the objective cosmic dream. This answers Arjuna's first question as to who is Para Brahman, or the transcendental God. Number 2, Adhyatma, or the soul. Krishna reveals to Arjuna that an aspect of the nature of transcendental God is to dream the cosmic universe and the creatures in it. His pure, unchanging consciousness within the dream, providing the underlying intelligence, is the Kudasta Chaitanya, individuality expressed as the soul. As a dreamer in dreamland creates various images having life or soul, so the divine dreamer, God, becomes the various dream bodies of human beings and manifests in them as their dream souls. Each soul, subjectively dreamed by God as an individuality in a specific body, makes a composite dream, man in the cosmos. Adhyatma signifies the underlying soul, Adi meaning, quote, underlying, unquote, and Atma meaning, quote, soul. Therefore, Arjuna's questions about Adhyatma is answered. Adhyatma is the underlying, quote, universal soul, unquote, or Kudasta Chaitanya, and the individual dream soul encased in a body dreamed by God. It is said that he loves to dream himself as separate souls. This gives the Lord an opportunity to play with the conscious dream souls in his cosmic drama. So, hope you're picking that up. There is a universal soul we all share, right? Number 3, cosmic karma, or meditative actions born of Om vibration. Our karma signifies all cosmic, divine, and material activities, as well as the spiritual and worldly activities of human beings. These activities emanate from the two cosmic dots of duality of the Visarga, the cosmic Om vibration, the intelligent cosmic vibration, the nature aspect of God. Externally emanates all material cosmic activities and spiritual and worldly activities of human beings. Internally, it makes manifest all divine activities emanating from God in the macrocosm of nature, and it helps man to adopt those good karmic activities that assist him in understanding his own soul and the Supreme Spirit. In the vibrationless perfect God, there is no action. Action or karma denotes the intelligent vibrations of a self-conscious being. The Om, or cosmic intelligent vibration, is the first manifestation of God in creation. Therefore, all the cosmic activities emanating from intelligent cosmic vibratory being, the Om, are termed supreme cosmic karma. Man is a miniature or microcosmic manifestation of the macrocosmic vibratory being, the indivisible, intelligent Holy Ghost, or Om, or the Word. Man's spiritual, worldly, and evil activities are termed human karma. God, manifested as the cosmic vibratory being, or Om, is the direct originator of all cosmic and human activities, governed by the law of karma, or cause and effect. The whole cosmos and all of its sentient beings are subject to this law. The cosmic vibratory being, as God's representative, is not only the maker of this law of karma, but the giver of its fruits. According to this divine decree, when man properly uses the gift of free choice, he receives good results. Similarly, when man performs material or evil activities, he reaps material or evil effects. Animals not subject to individual karma are under the sway of group or mass karma. This subsection is titled The Definition of Individual Karma and Mass Karma. The word karma signifies an intelligent activity issuing out of the cosmic vibratory being or of any intelligent creature in the cosmos. Each cosmic or human activity, according to its specific nature, produces good, worldly, or evil results. For example, the planetary positions devised by the cosmic vibratory being reflect the planetary karma that affects man's life and actions in the world in a good or evil way. Similarly, when man initiates a good, worldly, or evil activity, that action produces its suitable results. Therefore, just as a middle-aged man can say, quote, "My life and habits are the result of my activities since childhood," unquote, so each human life is the effect of the activities of past lives, and the sum total of the activities of a man's entire life will determine the specific nature of one or more of his future incarnations. An animal's life is predestined, man's is not. The tiger is ferocious and bloodthirsty by instinct. The lamb is characteristically meek and gentle. Since animals have no free choice, their traits are not the results of past actions, but are forced upon them according to the good and active or evil qualities in intelligent nature. But man's early good and evil traits are not thus forced upon him. They are the result of the good and bad actions of his past life or lives. Therefore, even though each man may be influenced by the triple qualities of cosmic delusion, Maya, he still has the divine gift of free choice, which he can use properly or improperly to his benefit or harm. A person may say of an event in his life, quote, "This is my karma, this is why it happened," unquote. He refers to past good or bad karma resulting in a specific happening in his life. Good, worldly, or evil actions performed with independent free will or through the influence of past actions are all called karma. Actions of individuals are called individual karma, and the collective actions of large segments of human beings are called mass karma. For example, if people in a community live in unsanitary conditions, the result may be the mass karma of an epidemic affecting that whole populace, the collective consequence of transgressions against the health laws of nature. Actions performed by free will are called Purushakara. Stored up impressions of past life actions that impel present actions are called Prarabdha karma. Therefore, in using the word karma, a person should specify whether it is good, worldly, or evil karma, and whether it is present or past karma, karma that is a result of the present use of free will, or karmic actions influenced by the past. This next subsection is titled The Factors That Influence Man's Free Will. And I'm going to take a quick drink. Man endowed with the gift of free choice is influenced by the cosmic storm of delusion in a triple way. When he misuses his free will under the influence of the evil quality, tamas, in nature he becomes evil. But when man uses his free will under the influence of the good quality, sattvas, thus resisting the evil influence of nature, he manifests goodness. By the misuse of the divine gift of free choice under the influence of activating quality, rajas, man becomes enmeshed in the worldly activities and eventually the evil activities of the gunas. After trials and tribulations, a man wants to become better. God, ever aware through his intelligent cosmic vibratory omnipresence, then sends the seeker a guru, a divine saint, or the teaching of such a one, thus trying to bring the devotee back to his divine kingdom. A worldly man is influenced chiefly by the external vibrations of activity that emanate from the cosmic vibratory being, Om. He thus becomes entangled in matter. On the other hand, a yogi who follows the highway of yoga reverses his consciousness into the inner activity of the cosmic vibratory being, Om. In other words, the yogi learns by the meditative activity of yoga to listen to the cosmic sound of Om and expand its consciousness with it into the cosmos. Thus, the yogi's soul, being one with the cosmic vibration of Om, the symbol of omnipresent God, becomes one with God in the vibrationless region. This elaborate explanation answers the questions of Arjuna and all true devotees as to what the transcendental Supreme Spirit is and what the underlying soul, Adhyatma, is and what karma is. Yoga activities are necessary to unite the matter-dreaming soul with the dreamless transcendental God, Para Brahman. Verse 4, O Supreme among the embodied Arjuna, the Abdibhuta is the basis of physical existence. The Adidaiva is the basis of astral existence. and I, the spirit within the body in the cosmos, am Adyajna, the causal origin, the great sacrificer, the maker and cognizer of all, unquote. And and this is subtitled The Answers to Arjuna's Questions about the Physical, Astral, and Causal Universes. The Abhibhuta represents the macrocosmic objective material universe and also the microcosmic physical body of man. Abhibhuta means, quote, that which becomes, unquote, the never fixed, the ephemeral, hence the material world of transitoriness. Spirit manifesting its creative consciousness in the physical macrocosm, and the microcosm is designated as Virata and Vishva, the governing angels of material creation. Abhidaiva signifies the macrocosmic objective astral universe that is hidden behind the gross vibration of the physical cosmos, as well as the microcosmic astral body of man that is concealed by his physical form. Abhidaiva refers to the Daivas, or Devas, literally, quote, the shining ones, unquote, or astral angels, God's consciousness governing the astral macrocosm and microcosm as Hiranyagarbha and Taijas. And interestingly enough, the Devas and the Daivas become evil in Zoroastrianism. Continuing, Adi Adiyajna designates the objective macrocosmic causal universes and the microcosmic causal body of man. Spirit differentiates its consciousness into the subjective specialized intelligence of Ishvara and Prajna to create and govern the causal macrocosm and microcosm. And Ishvara is God. These primal manifestations emanating from spirit are the ideational origins of all existences. Thus, Adiyajna means ultimately God as the originating dreamer whose pristine dreaming is a causal manifestation consisting of the thoughts or ideas of spirit that are the cause of the astral and physical dream condensation. Yajna means, quote, performance of a holy rite or sacrifice, unquote. God is thus the Adiyajna who performs all the dream ceremonies necessary for the creation of his universes. Through these quote-unquote ceremonies, he causes the Maya magic that transforms the absolute, the soul substance, into the active creator, the Om vibration or Prakriti, the inactively active underlying observer and intelligence, Kudastha Chaitanya, and the soul and the 6 subdivisions of Prakriti, which, along with the Prakriti or Holy Ghost, constitute the, quote, 7 angels before the throne of God, unquote, that create and govern the causal, astral, and physical macrocosms in microcosms, i.e., this is another reference to your chakras and how, again, macrocosms, microcosms, as above, so below, same idea here. Spirit as Adiyajna, existing in the cosmos as the originating and governing intelligences, and in the body of man as the soul, is therefore the all-creating underlying substance of the physical, astral, and causal universes with their various kinds of beings. It is God as both the originating dreamer and the supreme cognizer of all creation. In the universe or physical matter, the one spirit is thought of as a presence that has given to the complexity of the cosmos a coordinated unity and harmony. That same spirit is conceived in a higher, more powerful way in the intelligent energy present in all the atoms of the universe and in the conscious life present in all living creatures. Empowerment derived from the underlying astral universe and the universe possessing the powers of life. The deeper conception of the universe as an idea in the mind of God envisions the living spirit with personality, individuality, and conscious power of evolution. Ishvara, God the Father, expressing itself as the grand causal creation, the consummate primal rudiments of all becomings. In the macrocosms and microcosms, the Lord is truly the Adiyajna, or the one indweller. In the gross material universe, the manifestation of spirit has to be inferred. In the astral universe of vibratory life, the manifestation of spirit has to be felt. In the causal universe of ideational consciousness, the manifestation of spirit is known through intuitive perception. Very well said. This next big subsection is called the yogi's experience at the time of death, verse 5. Quote, lastly, he enters my being who thinks only of me at the hour of his passing, and when the body is abandoned, this is truth beyond doubt. Unquote. The commentary continues. Krishna now begins his answer to the final question posed by Arjuna in verse 2. How at the time of death art thou the Lord to be known by the self-disciplined? Unquote. A yogi who practices meditation throughout life is able to commune with God at any time, especially the crucial time of death. Man's thoughts at the last moments of life determine his status in the hereafter. The true yogi finishes the dream acting of his role in life and makes his final exit from the earthly stage, his mind fixed only on the bliss of spirit, his heart untainted by any mundane longings. After death, a devotee is not required by karmic law to return to earth if during his lifetime he has been able, through yoga practice, to disconnect his life force and consciousness from the body, and if he has been successful at will in entering the conscious, breathless state, maintaining life in the body by drawing a supply of cosmic energy from God, and if he has been non-attached to the body and to sense object, and if he had no personal desires but had remained undisturbed by egoistic wishes for any persons or object or sense enjoyment, thus knowing only the joy and love of his Creator. Such a devotee, without doubt, attains freedom and merges with the divine being. He needs no further incarnations on this earth for the satisfaction of unfulfilled desires, for he has rendered them all non-existent. A self-disciplined yogi who has trained his mind to be detached at will from the sensory world and to unite that emancipated mind with the Lord thinks of nothing but him at the time of death. According to the law of karma, that man has automatically created the cause that must manifest as the effect of God attainment. He who in life avoided all inharmony and who was accustomed to being absorbed in yoga ecstasy remains after death in the same state of divine union. Such a yogi throughout life sees his physical form as a dream of God, and when the atoms of that body dream or disperse by death, he wakes up in dreamless bliss. Verse number 6, quote, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, that thought with which a dying man leaves the body determines, through his long persistence in it, his next state of being, unquote. And the commentary elucidates the entirety of a human life is a preparation for the final examination at death. A man suddenly finds himself at death's door, reviews in a flash the thoughts and desires and habits of his entire life. He is quickly invaded by one overwhelming feeling or desire, whose nature will be in accordance with the character of his life. He may feel predominantly guilty for his evil actions, or predominantly happy because of his good deeds, or predominantly worldly because of his material activities. Whatever his feeling, it is the determining cause that will lead him to a particular part of the astral worlds, and then to another suitable incarnation on earth. Quote, for as he thinketh in his heart, so he is he, unquote. This next subsection's titled Meaning of Gabriel's Trumpet. The paramount habit of thought and feeling during a man's years on earth is thus the most important factor on, quote, the day of judgment, unquote. The final thought, inexorably produced by the tenor of a lifetime, is indeed the karmic judge that at the sound of Gabriel's trumpet announces a man's next destination. Gabriel's trumpet is the sound of the cosmic Om that ushers man from the physical body at death. The Om vibration, being the repository of all creative blueprints, represents to each man at the time of death the self-created pattern of his next existence. A human being leading a meaningless mechanical existence or an evil life little realizes that on the last day he will bring judgment upon himself, with the Gabriel's trumpet of karma proclaiming his fate. If a person is tired of material life or evil habits, why should he continue in that way to the end, only to be required to go on with the same kind of obnoxious living after death? Good question. Each man should endeavor to lead a righteous life that at its termination he will not have a guilty conscience and be reborn among evildoers. By practice of non-attachment, the yogi dissolves all the inclinations and desires in his heart and remains in continuous ecstasy with the Om vibration, the expression of God in creation. When death arrives, the yogi finds Gabriel's trumpet issuing from the cosmic Om, ushering him into the transcendental spheres of God. Lahiri Mayasaya went through this Om into the infinite and resurrected himself in a physical body one day after that of his quote-unquote death. Those devotees are liberated who can manifest the Christ or Kudasta consciousness by emerging through the cosmic Om from all three useless dead bodies, the physical, astral, and causal. The Christ or Kudasta consciousness is the, quote, first begotten Son of the dead, unquote, the first experience of omnipresence of the liberated being through which he, quote, cometh unto the Father, a cosmic consciousness, unquote. In this state, the emancipated being knows divine thought to be the matrix of creation. He too is now able to materialize thought into the shape of his former body or into the shape of any other body in which he may wish to appear. Or by choice, he may remain merged in the formless absolute in the bliss of transcendental spirit. Verse number 7, quote, therefore, remember me always, and engage thyself in the battle of activity. Surrender to me thy mind and thine understanding. Thus, without doubt, shalt thou come unto me, unquote. And the commentary continues. Krishna advises, quote, O devotee, I am the dreamer of the whole panorama of existence. Behold your body in the battle of daily activities as dreams emanating from my cosmic consciousness. If you prevent your mind with its sensory impressions and your discriminative intellect that is often influenced by the heart or feeling, from being emotionally agitated by the dream drama on earth, and keep them beholding my blessed beam that projects these pictures, you will experience no terror. Without doubt, you shall enter my transcendental dreamless state, unquote. The wise devotee so deeply meditates in the bliss of Kriya Yoga that he does not forget that blessed consciousness during the daily battle of activity in which his sensory mind and discriminative intellect are perforce engaged. When he is able always to act with his whole consciousness absorbed in God, at death he becomes fully one with him. And I will say this about this, is that, before I continue, is that this is true to the extent that in the further along you develop within your sort of spiritual path, you know, it starts to dawn on you that every moment, every day is a part of that spiritual journey. And that, like, you're just constantly met. I mean, constantly. You know, when I say that, it's a nonstop barrage in life. It's just constantly met with all these various things in life. You know, every interaction you have with anything is part of this. And so the more you can wrap your mind around the idea that, like, you can keep yourself involved in that idea that, like, you're constantly in that contact, then everything you do with a certain amount of just non-attached ease and love. You don't care about what happens to it, but you enjoy whatever it is that you happen to be doing at that moment, which is a very liberating feeling, because you don't really feel like you need to live up to anything. You don't need any validation from anything or anyone at all, ever, ever again. And it is very validating because, or I'm not sure, I'm releasing. It's very releasing because we play this game constantly with all these expectations with people, and much less our own expectations of ourselves, which are transitory and illusory if you really stop to think about it. And so what are we doing? We constantly banging our head against the wall over things that don't make any kind of difference whatsoever. And it's just like, by eliminating those ideas from your daily mind and replacing them with this idea that, like, everything really is this interconnected thing with oneness, and every person that you meet is just you dealing in a different karmic cycle of where, you know, your soul is in the space and time that doesn't, it's all happening all at once. You know, every person you see is just another reflection of our Kudasta Chaitanya, you know, our universal consciousness. And so every person, despite whether or not you have feelings about dislikes or likes about them, are no different than you. And any kind of struggle that they're having is a struggle that you yourself may have or may have experienced at some point. And just understand this in terms of, like, the universal idea of karma as well, and things that people call sins and errors. The more you work on those things, the more that those vibratory elements are erased through space and time. And so the very big things that you yourself can accomplish in your life to free yourself and connect within God, you are literally helping countless people let's just say countless souls that think they're different from you. So what I'm trying to say is that the more you accomplish in your own life, the more you are universally accomplishing in the universe itself. It's not a small thing here, right? It literally is the reason why you are here. If you can realize that and take those definitive steps, not only will your life blossom and help to blossom others around you, but realize and just have this idea in your mind that every good deed that you do, and even if it's internal, it reverberates within the universe forever. It's stamped within that Kudas, the Chaitanya, that Christ consciousness, and will always be there, present within our consciousness itself. It's the thing that it helps. So like I say, like every action and every karmic thing that you can accomplish that moves you forward in one way moves all of us forward, and that's the thing. That's the way it makes it easier. I think can make it easier for people to deal with the struggle with other people in this life. Because trust me, I mean that's where most of it comes in, right? So just keep that in mind and understand. And don't, you know what? And if you slip up, don't tear yourself down. Just realize that everyone stumbles. Just get back up, realize, forgive, and continue. And just try your hardest to do the best next time. That's the only thing we can really do in this life. But by constantly having that as part of your day, or making it part of your constant day, that's major. And I think it's something that if more people kept that as a reality, we would have easier time in life. We wouldn't have so much strife and struggle. Anyways, continuing. Verse number 8. Quote, he attains the supreme effulgent Lord, O Partha Arjuna, whose mind, stabilized by yoga, is immovably fixed on the thought of him. Unquote. Krishna tells Arjuna to prepare himself spiritually throughout life, that at death, in the manner of a great yogi, he may carry his divine consciousness into the ineffable presence of God. Krishna advised his disciple to practice pranayama, life control technique, or Kriya yoga, and learn to switch off the life currents from the five senses in order to still restless fluctuations of the mind, and then to unite his mind and life with the soul, and the soul with the shining light of spirit. Oh, and by the way, just look up pranayama, techniques or whatever on YouTube. You'll find more than enough videos to help you guys sort of get into some of these breathing techniques. I would suggest checking it out because the breathing part of it is really major when it comes to opening those chakras and feeling that thing. I fell upon it by accident. I got into such a deep meditation that I accidentally came into a breathless state, and the first time I really connected to it, really, but just in a way scared the hell out of me. But it was also at the same time so intense. It was something you can't deny. Continuing. It is necessary for man to practice a scientific technique such as Kriya Yoga to prevent his mind during meditation from wandering away from divine ecstasy into the domain of thoughts and material sensations. Indeed, that's the hardest thing about all meditation is keeping that focus. As a Kriya yogi relaxes his life force from the five senses telephones, he automatically finds the sensations and the thoughts have vanished from his consciousness. Thus freed, his mind becomes magnetized towards the blissful soul and his everlastingly communion with God. And yeah, when they say magnetized, that is really how it feels. And so, I mean, when that prana is just rushing through your body, you can, before it happens, you can feel the energy from the different poles of your body and the different poles of your head. So the back of your head, where your medulla oblongata, and the front of your forehead, in between your two eyebrows, you feel like it's almost like an arc of energy going from the back to the front. And if it connects, then it goes from the front all the way to the top of the head to the back, and it becomes this like circuit. And from that point on, that's when that pranic energy, that cold pranic energy, goes flowing through you, which is intense. Verses 9 through 10. Okay, I guess they're separating it different. Oh no, he's just putting it together. At the time of death, a yogi reaches the supreme effulgent Lord if, with love and by the power of yoga, he fully penetrates his life force between the eyebrows, the seat of the spiritual eye, and if and if he fixes his mind unwaveringly on the being who, beyond all delusions of darkness, shines like the sun, the one whose form is unimaginable, subtler than the finest atom, the supporter of all, the great ruler, eternal and omniscient. Unquote. Pointed out in these verses are the three qualifications by which a great yogi passes from his physical body into the divine essence. First, love of God. Second, mastery of that kingly science, Kriya Yoga, by which he can usher his consciousness into the infinite through the agency of the, quote, single eye, unquote, in the forehead. Third, perfect control of the mind made possible through constancy in yoga that enables him to place his thought undeviatedly okay, undeviatedly. I can say undeviate, but I can't add the ing. The undeviatingly on the Lord at the time of death, an hour whose finality is always known in advance by a true yogi. Oh, sorry. This subsection is called God as Light. These stanzas, making two references to God as Light, the supreme effulgent Lord, and the being who shines like the sun, quote unquote, also mention a specific yoga technique. See chapter 8, verses 12 to 13. The point Krishna wished to make by such a juxtaposition is that a man who devotes himself to yoga beholds the Lord as light. And I believe we already went through this section. In meditation, a great yogi takes his ego, his life force, prana, and consciousness beyond his physical body to a vast realm ablaze with soothing light. This radiancy, as a form, a thousand suns dissolves into an ever new display of multicolored rays issuing from an endlessly enlarging spherical fountain. The single eye in the forehead of man possesses the spherical vision in meditation, and the vision gradually expands for the yogi into the ineffable sphere of constantly changing luminosity, blissful and omnipresent. After experiencing this vibratory vision of Om as the cosmic light, the emancipated yogi goes beyond all delusive relativities of vibrations. He then feels and realizes the transcendental Lord, he who exists behind the transitory dreams of cosmic matter and is in its myriad components of cells, molecules, atoms, electrons, and protons, quote unquote lifetrons, prana or energy, and thoughttrons, quote unquote, the ultimate basis of matter. This next subsection's titled Astral and Causal Worlds, described in the transcendental state God spins out his dreams of ideational, causal, astral, and physical universes. The physical cosmos, with its many, quote, island universes, quote, unquote, floating in the eternal void, is encircled by the nimbus of radiant energy that melts away into the larger astral world. The astral cosmos is a grander manifestation of creation than the physical and runs through and beyond the latter. In the astral cosmos, many luminous galaxies of various densities with their astral, solar, and stellar systems are roving in a vaster sphere of eternity. The largest, or causal cosmos, contains countless causal galactic systems with their suns and planets roaming all through the physical and astral cosmoses and far beyond their boundaries to the outermost sphere of vibratory space. The causal universe is the womb of creation. In the causal universe, God's finest creative forces of consciousness and highly evolved beings with their intuitive processes objectify universes from subtle divine thought forces. Through pure soul intuition, an accomplished yogi can behold the physical cosmos and its being as the cosmic dream of God, or he can project his consciousness into the astral world and perceive its panorama of indescribably beautiful. Let me go back. Or he can project his consciousness into the astral world and perceive its panorama of indescribably beautiful island universes and beings made of ethereal blendings of various colored lights. Interestingly enough, too, guys, in the Journey of Souls book, they talk exactly about during that time in between life or death and rebirth, various souls are various colors and all various aspects of the astral world or in various different colors. So keep that in mind. Or he can fix his consciousness into the sublime causal sphere with its galaxies upon galaxies of dazzling wisdom objects and beings and their interactions, a glorious diadem in the eternally still, endless skies of spirit. The yogi who has attained complete control over his consciousness can behold the physical, astral, or causal worlds or go beyond to the transcendent vibrationless region of God. He is able to perceive one portion of the Lord's consciousness as the transcendental eternal peace and another portion as the ripple of cosmic dreams, the worlds of creation. It is the vibrationless, blessed consciousness of God that, in the last analysis, is the causative and omniscient supporter of the dream cosmos in all its forces, subtle and gross. The manifestations of the divine are in evidence in the cosmic dream, but he, the ruler, remains hidden. The subtitle of this section is The Process of Death, Exit Through the Spiritual Eye. To attain the Creator, Krishna tells us in the passage the yogi must completely penetrate his life force through the single or spiritual eye. This seat of omniscience in man is referred to in the Bible. Quote, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him I will give power over the nations, and I will give him the morning star. Unquote. Ha ha. Christ thus assured St. John of the divine reward for those who are faithful in God, quote, unto the end, unquote. The, quote, morning star, unquote, or the star of the east, is the spiritual single eye in the Christ or Kudasta center of the forehead. East, a microcosm of the relative vibratory light and consciousness of God. Through the spiritual eye, the adept yogi attains mastery over the forces, quote unquote, nations, in his physical, astral, and causal bodies and gains entry into the realm of spirit, i.e., what the entire Bhagavad Gita is all about, right? You have these forces, these nations that are fighting against each other, right? I mean, that's the whole allegory of this. Interestingly enough, here it is again in the Bible. It is through the opening of the spiritual eye that the astral vehicle of man emerges from the physical body at death. Deprived of their astral counterparts, the sense organs and myriad cells of the human form are left powerless. They then decay and return to their native state of quote-unquote dust. The astral body forces can be seen by the yogi as they pass up through the spinal tunnel and the brain, the 7 quote-unquote trap doors of the plexuses, and enter an astral form. The spiritual eye in the average man is not awakened during his lifetime, therefore he is not aware at death of the passage of the astral body through the plexuses. An unconscious person who is carried from one place to another does not notice the stages of his journey. Similarly, the ordinary individual does not see his life energy being freed from the physical vehicle at death and manifesting itself as an astral form. At death, man is overcome by fear at his strange experience, that of gradually finding himself unable to feel or express his will through a physical body. Then drowsiness overtakes him, and for some time he remains in a state of peaceful slumber, awakening from his sleep of death. Much needed after his hard trials of life, he becomes aware of his encasement in an astral body, one whose tissues are made of light. Amid the new beauties of the astral world, he forgets the whole of his past physical existence. Oh my God. That is exactly as explained in A Journey of Souls. I mean, exactly. Except for like the sleeping part, the whole sleeping part that he calls is just like the beginning of going through the tunnel and the initial meeting of their soul group and all that. Wow. Anyways, continuing, but a great yogi consciously observes through his spherical spiritual eye various phenomena of death. Even a person whose soul is only partially awakened by good karma may at the advent of death have glimpses of the glory and joy of the mortal transition from the physical body to the astral heaven. The advanced yogi sees his life force moving backward like a mass of rolling light from the cells, nerves, organs, and spine, and then enter an astral body which hovers over the inert physical form. The yogi, who in life or at death withdraws his life force from the senses and focuses it in the single eye, finds himself in a joyful state of breathlessness. He thrills to see streams of prana rolling back from the countless cells and ascending the spinal tunnel through the coiled stairway, kundalini, out from which, from the single eye passage in the forehead into a subtle astral body. A yogi who has arrived at this state, a midway perception of the physical plane and astral plane, is overwhelmed with joy. He sees a double splendor, that of two worlds, as a person standing on a narrow strip of land may simultaneously view two lakes that lie on either side, so the yogi is simultaneously aware of the physical sphere and the astral sphere. His range of perception increases through meditation on his intuitive spherical eye until he can behold the omnipresence of God in all creation and beyond it. When the yogi has freed himself from this physical body, he is still encased in an astral and causal body. By further yoga meditation on the spiritual eye, he ascends from the astral body by withdrawing his astral life force and consciousness upward through the triune tunnels of the astral spine, through the spiritual eye into the causal body. The ideational or causal body contains the seed thought of man's physical and astral bodies. When by deeper ecstasy the yogi dissolves his chronic thoughts or delusions that have caused him to be encased in physical and astral bodies, his soul then moves through the 7 idea knots or plexuses of his causal bodies out into the vibrationless transcendental. Notice how many different words he uses for the chakras. Keep that in mind because, it definitely, when you look at mythology, I mean, 7s are all over the place. So it's interesting, what are they really talking about here in terms of these 7, like the 7, candlesticks and the revelations and everything like that. Let me continue here. All right. Method of attaining the supreme. All right, guys, I'm going to have to take one last break, and then I'm going to come back and finish off these last, 15 pages here. So this is going to be a short one. 5 minutes at most. I will be right back. Man, my neck is killing me. sounds off. Let's finish this chapter. Okay, the main big title to this next section is The Method of Attaining the Supreme, verse 11. And quote, that which the Vedic seers declare as the immutable, that which is gained by the nonchance of vanished attachments, desiring which they lead a life of self-discipline, the method for attaining that I will relate to thee in brief, unquote. Let me just double check to make sure the sound's good. A little scratchy, huh? Maybe I should turn this down just a little bit. There we go. Alright, so, continuing. The divine goal is attainable, Krishna assures Arjuna, through certain definite methods described in the following stanzas. Verse 12 to 13. He who closes the 9 gates of the body, who cloisters the mind in the heart center, who fixes the full life force in the cerebrum, he who thus engages in the steady practice of yoga, establishing himself in Om, the holy word of Brahman, and remembering me, spirit, at the time of his final exit from the body, reaches the highest goal. Right? And the commentary continues, a Jyoti Mudra technique that is taught to Kriya yogis has for its purpose the making manifest the light Jyoti of the spiritual eye by quote, closing of the 9 gates of the body, unquote, which Lord Krishna here advocates as a means for man's illumination. The advanced Kriya yogi by this technique is able to control the life, and you can, by the way, you can look up Jyoti Mudra to see what that looks like. The advanced Kriya yogi by this technique is able to control the life current that is ordinarily diffused throughout the body, and to withhold its usual copious flow outward through the 9 gates or openings of the body. Let me see if I can look this up real quick. Jyoti Mudra. I can't really find it. Anyways, continuing. The mind, manas, or sense consciousness, is withdrawn from the 3 lower spinal centers associated with the physical senses, uplifted to the heart center, the second quote-unquote stopping place, and the ascension to the highest spiritual centers in the brain. With the attention focused at the point between the eyebrows, the withheld life force becomes concentrated there and in the cerebrum, illumining the omniscient spiritual eye, the divine gateway to the infinite. The yogi hears the cosmic sound Om, the holy word of Brahman. Merging in the Om vibration, the yogi enters the spiritual eye and releases his soul from the 3 bodies as aforementioned. Experiencing the omnipresence of Om, he merges into Kudastha, or Christ consciousness, inherent therein, and then ascends through cosmic consciousness to the transcendental absolute beyond vibratory manifestation. Let me close my window. It's raining. The yogi who steadfastly and successfully practices this method of realization attains consciously at the time of death complete liberation in spirit. Let me go back to where the chat is. Here we go. Verse 14, quote, O Partha Arjuna, I am easily reached by that yogi who is single-hearted, who remembers me daily, continually in his mind intensely focused only on me, unquote. Kind of what I was saying earlier. Success in self-realization depends on whole soul effort. The true devotee knows the value of constant and regular meditation by which his life becomes an uninterrupted prayer. Yoga should not be practiced mechanically or from an oppressive sense of duty, but with joy and perpetual zeal, thus causing each day's meditation to yield a deeper bliss than that of the previous day. Verse 15, quote, My noble devotees, having obtained me, spirit, have reached supreme success. They incur no further rebirths in this abode of grief and transitoriness, unquote. The commentary continues, supremely successful yogis are the high-souled, perfected beings who, in ecstasy or the after-death state, have achieved the ultimate union with the transcendental spirit. Their souls escape the karmic bonds of all three bodies and no longer dream the dreams of desires and attachments of mortal existence. Rebirth and the temporal, sorrow-fraught realms are no longer imposed upon them. They are awake in the cosmic dream of God and in the dreamless blessedness of spirit. Striving yogis should pragmatically view this world as a school. The highest lesson set for each man is the realization that he is not immortal, beset by pain and mutability, but a free son of God. The good student who is successful in the tests of earthly life and who passed the, quote, final examination, unquote, has no need to return for further instruction. He has earned the divine PhD. And that's interesting because that's exactly the same sentiment of the book A Course in Miracles. So this next big section of verses is titled Cycles of Cosmic Creation. Verse 16, quote, yogis not yet freed from the world revolve back again to the world, even from the high sphere of Brahma, union with God and Samadhi. But on entering into me, the transcendental spirit, there is no rebirth, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, unquote. Elaborating on the previous verse, Krishna points out that merely reaching the abode of Brahman, spirit, may not in itself assure complete liberation. Even though the yogi may attain in ecstatic meditation high states of God union, merging the consciousness in Om in the vibratory dominion of Brahma, experiencing his omniscience in omnipresent Kudastha or Christ consciousness, and even reaching the highest Brahma sphere of cosmic consciousness, he cannot remain in those states but must revolve again back to bodily consciousness if there persists within him any mortal desires or karmic bonds. If death occurs in this imperfect state, he will be reborn on earth or in some high astral realm with a new opportunity and the spiritual potential to free himself. Pardon me. In meditation, the yogi gradually ascends his consciousness and life force upward through the spinal centers of divine awakening, experiencing expanded self-realization with each higher step. He who attains union with the triune manifestation of Brahma as the cosmic Om vibration or Holy Ghost in the medulla, as the Christ or the Krishna or Christ consciousness in the Kudastha center, between the eyebrows, and as cosmic consciousness in the thousand-petaled lotus in the cerebrum, still will have to return to limited mortal consciousness if he has not broken all karmic bonds, desires, and attachments, and consciously ascended from all three bodily encasements, physical, astral, and causal. The more the yogi is able to, at will, to gain the elevated states of consciousness, and the longer he is able to hold on to them in meditation and after meditation, the more he diminishes his binding karmic reflexes and dream delusions. When these are vanquished, the yogi dissolves the body-conscious ego into the soul and takes his soul with its astral and causal bodies out of the physical body. He then takes his soul and causal body out of the astral body, and finally his soul ascends from the causal form and emerges into the transcendental spirit from which there is no compulsory return to the veil of distressing dualities. The Sanskrit word lokas in this verse may also be rendered as worlds, quote unquote. With that interpretation, the verse translates as follows and leads into the succeeding verses. All worlds, from the high sphere of Brahma to the gross earth, are subject to the finite law of recurrence, but those devotees, O Arjuna, who become merged in me are freed from rebirth. The law of recurrence is inexorably operative not only for all mortal beings, but also for all finite worlds, including the sphere of Brahma, that portion of spirit that is immanent in creation as the dreaming creator, preserver, destroyer during each cycle of cosmic manifestation. Man escapes from that law when he, quote, comes to himself, unquote, or remembers his essential divinity and becomes irrevocably united to the transcendental absolute. Verses 17 to 19. Verses 17, quote, they are true knowers of, quote, day and, I'll just go back. They are true knowers of day and night who understand the day of Brahma, which endures for 1,000 cycles, yugas, and the night of Brahma, which also endures for 1,000 cycles. At the dawn of Brahma's day, all creation, reborn, emerges from the state of non-manifestation. At the dusk of Brahma's night, all creation sinks into the sleep of non-manifestation. Again and again, O son of Pertha, Arjuna, the same throng of men helplessly take rebirth. Their series of incarnations ceases at the coming of night and then reappears at the dawn of day, unquote. The commentary continues, Brahma, the creator, is that aspect of divinity which is active in creation, the Lord of time. Brahman, or Parabrahman, it signifies God as the absolute, the transcendental. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but quote, for 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Thou carriest them away as with a flood. They are as asleep. In the morning they are like grass which groweth up. In the morning it flourishes and groweth up. In the evening it is cut down and withereth. Unquote. This next section is called the Yugas, Cosmic Cycles of Evolution and Decay. Krishna refers to these vast cycles or yugas to impress on Arjuna's mind the folly of man in allowing himself to remain a part of phenomenal existence, mechanically revolving from cycle to cycle. The Christian Bible makes the following mentions of the cycles: the night of non-manifestation and the day of manifestation. Quote, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, vibrations. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, and that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Unquote. Many complex formulas exist in the Shastras, in astronomical treatises known as the Siddhantas, for measuring time and space from the infinitesimal atom to the cyclic ages of the cosmos. Any unprepared student who has challenged himself to this study will appreciate the wry comment of the renowned Sanskrit scholar Monier Williams in his treatise Indian Wisdom. Quote, an astronomical Hindu ventures on arithmetical conceptions quite beyond the mental dimensions of anyone who feels himself incompetent to attempt the task of measuring infinity. Unquote. The word yuga is a general term for designated an age or particular span of time. Depending on the formula and the interpretation and application thereof, various figures are arrived at in the determination of the length of yugas. See references to cosmic cycles below. My Guru Deva Swami Sri Yukswar in the Holy Science deplored the error made by Hindu almanac makers during the last Kali Yuga. By misunderstanding they abandoned all reference to the 24,000-year equinoctial cycle by translating it into Daiva years, or of a vast universal cycle, each Daiva, or divine year, being equal to 360 solar years. The Jnana Avatar, a venerable authority in the science and art of spiritual astronomy and astrology, urged the reintroduction and the adoption of the 24,000-year cycle, by which man is directly affected in his allotted space in this current solar system. Measurements of the human creature's place in a vast universal scheme are notably irrelevant to the divine purpose that has placed the body-circumscribed mortal in his present position. No kidding. He is already well taxed merely to keep pace with the minutes and hours of his earthly years, fraught with intrusions from the natural and subtle events and influences of his immediate worldly and celestial environment. Indeed, this next section is subtitled Exoteric and Esoteric Meanings of Yuga. Exoterically, the cosmic cycles cited in these three verses refer to the various phases of creation. A, quote, day of Brahma being the time manifested creation, a night of Brahma being a time of equal length wherein creation is dissolved. Its, quote unquote, seeds held unmanifest in Mula Prakriti. Recurrent cycles of manifestation and dissolution are applicable to the lifespans of solar systems, galaxies, or a specific spectrum of the objects and life forms within them, and ultimately of the universe as a whole. Dissolutions may be partial, as the removal of vast segments of objects or beings from the cosmic dream movie as a result of cataclysmic events, or total, the resolution of matter into ethereal energy or its complete withdrawal into spirit. Esoterically, and more importantly, as they directly affect man's scheme of existence, the cosmic cycles refer to the inner microcosmic solar universe of man's astral body, which governs his individual evolution. The spiritual eye, which receives its light and energy from its connection with the divine center of consciousness in the thousand-petaled lotus, the Sahasrara, in the brain, is the sun of the microcosm, and the six subtle plexuses or chakras of the spine, 12 by polarity, are the 12 astral signs of the zodiac. The cosmic sun of our solar system moves through the signs of the celestial zodiac in 1 year cycles, and this whole system moves around a dual star or magnetic center in the cosmos in a 24,000 year cycle, referred to as the equinoctial cycle, consisting of 4 yugas or ages: Kali, Dwapara, Treta, and Satya. In the 12,000 year ascending arc of these 4 yugas and a corresponding 12,000 year descending arc, similarly, the individual evolution of man is marked by the cycles of his miniature solar cosmos, the energizing effect of the sun of the spiritual eye on the zodiacal astral centers of the spine. In 12-year cycles, man is slowly advanced in his spiritual evolution. These 12 solar years are for man a yuga or cyclic time span. It is said by the ancients that if the human being could remain quote unquote awake, anchored in spiritual consciousness, uninterrupted by lapses caused by death or disease or mental impairment, for a period of 1,000 yugas, or the equivalent of 12,000 years of one cosmic cycle of the 4 cosmic yugas, he would evolve through all stages of these 4 ages, from the material Kali Yuga to the sublime Satya Yuga, manifesting the full realization thereof. So again, macrocosm, the microcosm, right? This next section. Okay, to appreciate this progression, it is necessary to comprehend the nature of the ideal being of each age, one who manifests the full potential thereof, as each of the 4 yugas contain also a relative portion of all 4 yugas. This next section is subtitled Characteristics of Each Yuga Corresponds to Caste. In Kali Yuga, the intellect and capacity of man are characteristically confined to gross matter and concerns of materiality. His natural state is a Sudra. He is wholly servile to the circumscriptions of nature. In Dwapara Yuga, he gains comprehension in the use of the electrical and atomic constituents of matter, realizing the nature of matter to be energy. He is said to be a Divija, or the quote-unquote twice-born class. In Treta Yuga, the mental age, man acquires knowledge and mastery of the attributes of universal magnetism with its polarized, subtle electricities from which his astral and physical instrumentalities evolve. He is able to discard many of the quote-unquote mechanisms that enhance his sensory faculties, as his natural powers of telepathy, clairaudience, and clairvoyance, clear vision, develop. He is then said to be of the Vipra, or nearly perfect class of being, and in Satya Yuga, the spiritual age, the ideal man has the capacity to comprehend the source of universal magnetism with its duality, the primal movement or expression of the consciousness of God, from which evolve the 24 principles of nature that inform all creation. He will have the power of continuous contact with God, becoming a Brahmin, a knower of God. His perception will be through intuition. Interplanetary and intra-astral travel will be accomplished not by airplanes or atomic airships, but by the instantaneous astral projection. He will have mastered the full spectrum of Aishvaryas, or divine powers. Alas, the attainment of the ultimate man through 12,000 years of unimpeded evolution is beyond the instrumentality of the ordinary mortal, who is constrained to pace himself with nature's forward and backward movements, progress along with retreats occasioned by the onslaught of delusion and its interruptions of death and rebirth. But to assure man's ultimate return to his true self, the Lord has built into man's being and his cosmic environment the evolutionary cycles that by divine decree push him forward toward the fulfillment of a sublime destiny. Without error against the natural laws that govern body and mind, it is said that about 1,000,000 solar years of evolution are necessary for a human to attain self-realization. Mortal man, inevitably error-prone, must face a multiple of these evolutionary years. The lackadaisical being who dallies in his physical or astral evolution, or who perhaps desires to remain for aeons in the nearly perfect causal world, enjoying in blissful perception and participation the awesome magnitude of the wonders of the Lord's creation, will, at the approach of the quote, night of Brahma, enter a state of partial or temporary dissolution, a cosmic nighttime of rest in spirit. Except for a few liberated men, the same multitude of beings are reborn many times during a day of Brahma. They rest, without further incarnations, during the night of cosmic dissolution. But with the coming of the day or cycle of cosmic creative manifestation, again they start a round of karmically compulsory journeys in physical, astral, and causal encasement. The next section is subtitled Kriya Yoga, the Way to Early Liberation. For those who reject the indignity of moral encumbrances on their immortality and who seek early liberation with the free choice to select their dwelling in physical, astral, or causal form or in formless, blissful infinity, the Lord sends his avatars to show the way to hasten salvation. By Kriya Yoga, which consciousness and life energy, prana, are circulated up and down the spine around the spinal centers, equaling the effect of the sun's passage through the signs of the zodiac. One such revolution in a period of 1/2 to 1 minute produces 1 year of evolution. The adept Kriya Yogi in deep states of meditation and samadhi can increasingly multiply this evolutionary effect of each Kriya. The sincere Kriya Yogi, according to the evolutionary effect of each the sincere Kriya Yogi, according to the degree of his past life, spiritual attainments, and present merit, may achieve liberation in 3, 6, 12, 24, or 48 years, or in only one or a few additional incarnations. Though the Lord's outwardly expressive principle, vibratory Om, God is perpetually floating dreams being on waves of creation, preservation, and dissolution. Though the cosmic dreams of the divine are eternal processes, man is not eternally bound to them. By Kriya Yoga, meditation, and divine grace, God communion and its concomitant spiritual awakening can be immutably established in daily life. The advanced Kriya Yogi learns by ecstasy to shut off the delusion-imposed dream of this world and of his body, and to substitute a self-created dream world and dream existence in which he can interact with the Lord's cosmic dream, playing any part without the fearsome coercions and entanglements of delusion. By the power of concentration, the Kriya Yogi dismisses from his consciousness the cosmic dream world and his dream body and its subconscious dreams, and reaches the awakened, dreamless state of ecstasy. In the blessedness of divine communion between soul and spirit, he realizes his causal body as a concentrated matrix of God's thoughts, and that his astral and physical bodies are the subtle and gross dream manifestations of these ideations. By continuous ecstasy throughout life, he transcends the circumscriptions of a body-bound ego and lives solely as the immaculate self, the pure image of God incarnate, able to perceive and express through his astral or physical body dreams, or to dissolve them at will. In the early stages of self-mastery, the yogi is able to dissolve the perceptions of his dream body in the realization of his oneness with God, but the dream body itself does not dematerialize. After he loses his wakefulness of his ecstasy, he again perceives as a definite reality, too hard to forget, his physical dream body and the astral dream body encased within it. Only by deeper ecstasies, when the yogi secures unbrokenly his soul union with the transcendental spirit, can he consciously dissolve the cosmic dream of his physical, astral, and causal bodies, and then recreate them at will, forever realizing them to be naught but dreams of God, with whom his soul and its conscious dreaming are one. Whether awake in blissful transcendence or consciously dreaming with God, the cosmic fantasy of being the liberated soul suffers no more the ignoble confinements that binds the majority of the ceaseless cycles of Brahma's days and nights. The wheels rotate forever, but one by one wise men slip away from it. Give glory to the Lord your God before he causes darkness, and before your feet stumble upon the dark mountains. And while ye look for light, he turn it into the shadow of death and make it gross darkness. Unquote. Verse 20. Quote, excuse me. But transcending the unmanifested states of phenomenal being, there exists the true unmanifested, the immutable, the absolute, which remains untouched by the cycle of cosmic dissolution. Unquote. And the commentary continues, a part of God's consciousness, tat, undifferentiated and in itself unmanifested, is reflected in nature. The words of becoming, in which he dreams eternally the cycles of evolution and involution, but his essential nature, he, the unmanifested one, beyond all vibratory realms of conscious dreams, sat, or eternal being, existence itself. In this stanza, Krishna explains that the unmanifested state, or avyakta, of cosmic dissolution is not one of final freedom, but merely a temporary resting place for unenlightened beings who are again to emerge as actors in the cosmic dream. Beyond and dissimilar to that periodically unmanifested state of cosmic vibration remains the ever-existent vibrationless state. I'm not going to read that. The eternal unmanifested. Thus it is said that even the pure, undifferentiated aspect of spirit in creation, tat, has an impermanency, punctuated by comings and goings, in that his heart of the and that this heart of the universe at the time of cosmic dissolution, for want of a form of which to beat, is resolved again into spirit. This is symbolized in the Hindu scriptures as Vishnu, the preserver of the worlds, asleep on Shisha, the thousand-headed serpent, awaiting the dawn of the next cycle of manifestation, he will send forth again those worlds and non-liberated beings he has preserved in an unmanifested state during the long night of cosmic delusion. Awesome. Verses 21 and 22. Quote, the aforesaid unmanifested, the immutable absolute, is thus called the supreme goal. Those who attain it, my highest state, undergo no more rebirth. And verse 22, quote, by single-hearted devotion, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, that supreme unmanifested is reached. He alone, the omnipresent, is the abode of all creatures. And the commentary continues: the sole gift of a human being may represent the infinite giver is. Let me go back. The sole gift a human being may present to the infinite giver is love, indeed. To bestow that gift on God, or miserly to withhold it, is man's only private power. All else already belongs to the maker of heaven and earth. By pure, humble bhakti, devotion, man becomes fit to enter even the ultimate haven, the immutable and the unmanifested. And this final main section of verses is titled under the title The Way of Release from the Cycles of Rebirth, verses 23 and 26. Quote 23, I'll just read them all. I shall now declare unto thee, O best of the Bharatas, Arjuna, the path, traversing which at the time of death yogis attain freedom, and also the path wherein there is rebirth. Fire, light, daytime, the bright half of the lunar month, the 6 months of the northern course of the sun, pursuing this path at the time of departure, the knowers of God go to God. Smoke, nighttime, the dark half of the lunar month, and the 6 months of the southern course of the sun. He who follows this path obtains only the lunar light and then returns to earth. For these two paths for exiting from the world are reckoned eternal. By way of light leads to release, by way of darkness leads to rebirth. And the commentary elucidates these mysterious stanzas, woefully misinterpreted by nearly all commentators, in reality contain symbolic reference to the science of yoga. They describe the opening of the spiritual eye, the awakening of the cerebral spinal centers, and the ascension of life force and consciousness through them to cosmic consciousness and liberation in spirit of the yogi, who follows the quote-unquote way of light. And on the contrary, they describe also the descension or return to bodily consciousness or rebirth of those yet unable to open fully all the cerebral spinal doors that lead ultimately to spirit. Liberation, freeing the soul from the physical, astral, and causal bodies, is the purport of these verses. The ponderous scriptures of the rishis have defined in veiled terms the labyrinth of the soul's descension and ascension. Krishna here stated this portion of the yoga science succinctly for the comprehending Arjuna, the advanced yogi devotee. The rudiments are as follows. Subtitled, The Esoteric Path of Fire and Light, followed by the Yogi to Liberation. Stanza 24 states that the yogi who attains liberation must follow the path of quote-unquote fire. Here, fire means the life energy, the kundalini power. The devotee's first scientific step towards emancipation is to gain control of his life force. In ordinary men, the course of prana is downwards, quote, the way of darkness, unquote, flowing from the brain to the sensory nerves in the countless cells of the body. This dispersion and diffusion of life energy reveals in human consciousness the material world. In the successful yogi, on the other hand, the course of prana is upward, quote, the way of light, unquote. By yoga, he reverses the direction of the flow and is able to concentrate the whole of his life force within the brain in the quote-unquote sun of cosmic consciousness. In this way, God is revealed. The quote-unquote sun of cosmic consciousness is the supreme source of life and intelligence in the body, with its abode in the seventh or highest spiritual center, in the cerebrum, in the thousand-petaled lotus, a sunburst as of 1,000 petals. All life and faculties in the body evolve from this powerhouse of luminosity through its projected rays of the spiritual eye. quote-unquote light in stanza 24 refers to the divine eye in the forehead, whose awakening enables the yogi to say with Christ, quote, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life, unquote. The light of the spiritual eye is a projection of the quote-unquote sun of cosmic consciousness. Through the light of the spiritual eye, the yogi moves along the path to spirit. Quote-unquote daytime is the manifestation of the spiritual eye during samadhi state of meditation. This is the yogi's quote-unquote daytime, for he has awakened from the sleep of delusion. The quote bright half of the lunar month, unquote, is the half of the advanced yogi is that half of the advanced yogi's consciousness that remains quote-unquote awake and attuned to cosmic consciousness even when the other half of his consciousness is asleep or active in the material world of delusion. Interesting, yeah? The similar reference is made in chapter 2, verse 69, quote, that which is night to all creatures is wakefulness to the man of self-mastery, and what is wakefulness to ordinary men is night to the divinely perceptive sage, unquote. Very, very good. The moon, whose light is a reflection of the sun, has a bright fortnight waxing period and a dark fortnight waning period in its monthly cycle. The sun of cosmic consciousness shining on matter, the light of the astral world and body that upholds the enlivens the material world and body, is here referred to as reflected or lunar light. In man, a miniature universe, its bright side is when it is spiritualized and turned towards cosmic consciousness, and its dark side is when it's turned towards delusion. In the advanced yogi, the cerebral spinal centers, through those performing their activities that externally enliven the body, necessitating their working through the instruments of nature or delusion, the outward flowing or quote-unquote dark side, remain nevertheless inwardly in a spiritualized or illumined state. When the yogi withdraws from external activities and enters samadhi through the light of his spiritual eye, this is the true, quote, bright fortnight, unquote. That period of day when his whole being is inwardly ablaze, turned towards spirit, basking in the quote-unquote sun of cosmic consciousness. The, quote, 6 months, unquote, are the 6 spinal centers, the coccygeal to the spiritual eye. Thus, the 6 months of the northern course of the sun refers to the 6 periods of spiritual perceptions in these centers as consciousness and life descended from the quote-unquote sun of consciousness into the body, and are reversed to flow upward, quote-unquote north, to their supreme source in the cerebrum. Man, am I going to connect this chapter to the work I got coming to you guys. What transpires as the yogi moves along this, quote, way of light, unquote, is a veritable intricate transition of his life and consciousness through the spiritual eye. First, life and consciousness move upward through the physical spine and brain, freeing the yogi from the physical body. Then transition through the 3 astral spines of light, the Sushumna, Vajra, and Chitra, freeing the yogi from the astral body. And lastly, ascension through the causal, quote-unquote, spine of consciousness, the Brahmanadi, whereby the soul is liberated in spirit. At death, the soul of the successful yogi, following this path, rises majestically, unencumbered from the revolving cycles of obligatory rebirths. Jeez. The subsection here is subtitled The Way of Darkness and Mortal Bondage. Now is described in verse 25. By contrast, the, quote, way of darkness, unquote, that leads to the continued mortal bondage. Quote-unquote smoke means ignorance or delusion that obscures divine perception of reality and that holds man, even the still aspiring yogi, in body consciousness. Quote-unquote nighttime is the state of darkness caused by ignorance. Jesus said, quote, the light of the body is the eye, the omniscient, single, or spiritual eye. That's in parentheses. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, obscured by delusion, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness, unquote. Indeed. The quote, dark half of the lunar month, unquote, is the outflowing life and consciousness from the cerebral spinal centers in the spiritually unawakened man that causes him to dream the dreams of delusive material activities in his nighttime of ignorance. Quote, the 6 months of the southern course of the sun, unquote, refers to the descent of the delusion-clouded sun, unquote, of cosmic consciousness through the 6 spinal centers of the lower or southern part of the body, specifically the 3 lower spinal centers associated with material consciousness. These references in this context are specifically in relation to the time of death or departure from the physical body. Those whose inner divine sight is clouded by the, quote, smoke, unquote, of delusive or delusion leave the body in the, quote unquote, nighttime or darkness of ignorance, unconscious. This next section is subtitled Death Experience of the Unenlightened Man. Or, oh, shoot, okay. So, yeah, Death Experience of the Unenlightened Man. I got to go back and start this sentence because I just interrupted it halfway through for some reason. Those whose inner divine sight is clouded by the quote-unquote smoke of delusion leave the body in the quote-unquote nighttime or darkness of ignorance, unconscious or at least not fully conscious of the transition from the physical to the astral body and world. Departing in the quote dark lunar fortnight, unquote, with his unawakened consciousness in the spinal centers still attracted to the delusive material activities, his exiting consciousness and life force retire from the physical body and flow downward, quote, the southern course, unquote. In this way, unconsciously moving through the quote unquote dark side or outflowing energy of the 6 spinal centers, he descends into the astral body. His state of advancement in good karma determine whether his exit from the physical body and subsequent stay in the astral are passed through in an oblivious darkness, like a deep sleep, with perhaps occasional dreams or glimpses of the astral world. Only evil persons experience astral nightmares, or quote-unquote hell, or whether he is fully awake in the glory of the heavenly realms, in any case not having attained freedom in spirit, but only, quote, the lunar light, unquote, or astral encasements of his soul, he remains in the astral world for a karmically predetermined time, and then his physical desires and karma cause him to take rebirth. In the quote-unquote darkness or sleep of astral death, he passes into the sperm and ovum united cell and begins his rebirth in the dark womb of his new mother. Even the accomplished yogi who is in samadhi meditation attains high states of divine communion but has not opened all doors to liberation from the physical, astral, and causal soul encasements has to return from samadhi to body consciousness. At death, his astral sojourn is a glorious one, but having attained only the quote lunar light, unquote, of the astral heaven and harboring unfinished material desires and karma, he revolves back to he revolves back to rebirth on earth, but with divine aspiration that predisposes him to a spiritual life, a literal, let me go back. But having attained only the quote-unquote lunar light of astral heaven and harboring unfinished material desires and karmas, he revolves back to rebirth on earth, but with divine aspirations that predisposes him to a spiritual life. A literal interpretation of these verses, that the yogi within the 6-month period of the northern passage of the sun is senseless. An illumined yogi leaves his body instantaneously at any time he chooses, during the day or night, the bright or dark lunar fortnight, the northern or southern course of the sun. He does not have to consult the brainless stars for an auspicious hour since time began. Never has there been a, quote, inauspicious, unquote, hour for man to awaken from delusion. Indeed. Good point. Verses 27 and 28, and I think we're getting down to the last couple pages here. 27, quote, no yogi who understands these 2 paths is ever deluded into following the way of darkness. Therefore, O Arjuna, at all times maintain thyself firmly in yoga, which is just communion, it's just union, that's all that it really means. Verse 28, he who knows the truth about the 2 paths gains merit for far beyond any implicit in the study of the scriptures, or in sacrifices, or in penances, or in gift-giving. That yogi reaches his supreme origin, unquote. And the very short commentary, to know that he lives in a state of cosmic delusion is man's first precious glimpse of truth. Absolutely. To learn and practice yoga, the method of deliverance from delusion is to possess an incomparable treasure. So, O devotee, at all times, maintain thyself firmly in yoga. Om Tat Sat, in the Upanishad of the Holy Bhagavad Gita, the discourse of Holy Krishna to Arjuna, which is the scripture of yoga and the science of God realization. This is the 18th actually, right? No, the 8th chapter called Union with the Absolute Spirit. Wow, we made it, guys. Awesome. Excuse me. Well, that was good. I'm glad that those of you that joined me for almost the whole time. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And those of you in the comments and in the chat over there. This was a great chapter. I really enjoyed this chapter a lot. Let me go ahead and give my end screen here. And there's quite a few things at the end of this. The last couple chapters I've read, so interestingly, are going to just directly connect what we just read, like 2 pages ago. I had completely forgot about, and definitely going to be including that into the one of the next the Snake and the Serpent series videos, which I'm currently in the middle of doing. It's going to probably end up being a long video, very edited, much more of a presentation. So those people who don't like the audiobooks will definitely like that better. But you guys that listen to this you're definitely going to see me bring parts of this right back to show how some of the oldest mythology this world ever has is in many ways directly related to the exact same concepts. And unfortunately, much of the academia seems to be bereft of the fact that these concepts are there. They are completely oblivious to this. Not completely, I should say. There's definitely an element that they, I think, understand, but that's the big problem, I think, that happens between academia itself and spirituality. And, and one of the things that is fascinating about all that is that, like, I appreciate academia big time because they do the work. To go and learn these languages and to help translate that for the rest of us. And so for that, I'm eternally grateful. However, that being said, they also have a serious issue sometimes with the fact that they can't see past the end of their nose, and that's, to me, is a problem. I'm going to bring this back here to yogananda.org again if you guys are interested in checking out more of the website and the different teachings. And I mean, they have apps, they have meditations, they have meditated with them. Like, there's all kinds of different resources here that you can tap into. Of course, there's the book. Again, $29.50 is actually not that expensive, and it's beautiful. Like, all the pictures in it are gorgeous. Comes in a nice little slipcase. And they're here, the YouTube channel, in case you guys are interested. And then don't forget, scientists just compared the flash of light that sparks when a sperm meets an egg. These guys predicted that God knows how long ago. And so, there's something to the idea of real intuition. And once it starts to blossom in your own life, there's no question of its reality in your own experience once it does happen. But it does take time. And I just want everyone to know that, like, do not become disheartened. Like, you cannot become a professional by just practicing for a day. And this thing is, it's like, okay, so for example, on my journey, well, let's just say I'm 43 years old, right? Say I just started today on my spiritual journey. I would suggest somebody in my space, or however old you are, you've spent X amount of years living in a certain way that has, allowed you to survive in this world. But in essence, it's not one of those things where it necessarily has brought you, something of, how can I say this? There's something that just shows you there's just something much more important within life itself. And in so much of life just wants to smash us down and keep us locked into this whole rat race, right? Something that we all have such struggles dealing with, and that's something that, at least when you look across the world and you look at the people that you deal with in your life, understand they're dealing with the same damn thing themselves, and we can have an empathetic feeling between us and those around us if we can realize that we're all in this shit show together. So excuse my language. But I mean, it's true. I mean, we're all struggling with this together. We can, by just the actions and the way that we can become a true beautiful example of what life can be, just by tuning into who you really are in the process of your spiritual awakening. and then by being that person in every single day, kind of like what I was saying earlier, and what the scriptures were saying to us, is this whole idea that, like, you can spend time in meditation, but the real goal is to be able to spend time in meditation. To the fact of the matter is that every moment of your day is a meditation, and is a somewhat of a meditation. And as the closer you get to that, the happier, more balanced, more calm and peaceful that you will be on a daily basis. And that will rub off on people. And you will have moments where you'll just be randomly talking to some coworker or something like that, and then some random intuitional thought will pop out of your mind, and you'll throw it out to them, and they'll be like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" I had a, I had a, I had a coworker a couple months ago. I was talking to her, a young girl, and she's like 20 now. And I forget what I was saying, but I just, out of nowhere, it just came to me. I just said it without thinking. And she turned to me and she was like, "Dude, it's like, you sound just like a philosopher." And I laughed, and I said, I was like, "You're just realizing that now?" Because I had worked with her for years, and I hadn't, I had been slowly bestowing knowledge upon her, because it's tough when you're young and you're inexperienced in life and whatever else. But we developed a really great relationship, to the point where she actually calls me her mentor, and appreciates the fact that I can spend time with her and talk to her as an adult instead of some dumb kid, which is what a lot of teenagers get. And this year we had another younger guy working with us, and the same kind of thing happened. And I told them, and one day he was like, "I really love working with her and I, because there's this level of just openness that he doesn't get with other adults." And I told him right off the top, I was like, "Well, the reason why that is because I treat you like an adult. I talk to you like you're an adult, and therefore, give you that respect." And they both immediately realized that that was true, and they accept that from me, and they love that about me, because I'm not a condescending person to them. And I realize all people search knowledge, but we're not all ready for the same kind of knowledge. So it's also important to be intuitive to the fact that you may want to throw down all this stuff on people, but really, realistically, is that you have to feel that out. Each person is different, and each person requires a different level of subtlety and love and attention, and your intuition has to be able to suss that out. And so when you are out to try to help those around you, you know, pay attention to all those things first quietly, and let them kind of, ruminate in your mind. And the further you get in that, and the more intuitive you get in that, the more you'll understand exactly what to do and what to say in any particular situation. So with that, I bless all of you guys. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And I will be back probably tomorrow, I think. I mean, this week, I think I'm surely going to try to finish this book off this week. We're getting close. So much love to you all, and I will see you guys on the flip side. Peace.